Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, welcome. Sorry, I got a bit of the tobacco leaf stuck in my teeth there. As I said before, we're coming on air. I'm smoking an 8 Jumpman Magnum 54, beautiful big thick cigar, 54 ring gauge hat. That's one of the thicker ring gauges that I will smoke.
It is indeed a ring gauge.
But it is, it's probably one of the most shortbready of the Upman line, which is saying something, given that the entire line, I think, is characterized mainly by shortbread, much like the country of Scotland in that regard, and indeed lines of biscuits produced by the royal family.
I felt like that was developing into a great link into something else. But
no.
Speaking of biscuits,
speaking of shortbread, here's Simon.
So there I was in the pre-show chat that we have, and all I suggested was we all go along and see the new production of Glengarry Glen Ross, the all-women production of Glengarry Glen Ross. That's going to be at the Old Vic in June. And what did I get but flat, nay, aggressive refusals from people in this chat, in this show, who should remain unnamed. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, all I'm saying is that it's one of the most masculine plays of all time. What do I want to see it done by women for?
I feel you're not giving it a chance.
Who's in it? Joe Rogan's wife. Did you see that news?
Some woman from Game of Thrones, I think, as well.
Elia Martell from Game of Thrones is in it.
Oh, I see.
Simon, I didn't answer you in the chat. I didn't give an opinion on that.
Yes. You're my last hope. Hoyt, you want to go and see it, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's Glengarry Glen Ross on stage, but with a woman,
all women,
all female cast.
That's right.
Sounds like dog shit, to be honest. No, I'm not going.
I've seen I've seen it on stage already, starring Jonathan Pryce.
Oh, the classic original stage production in London.
Yeah, but he was playing Levine. He was playing Levine in that one, not James Link, as he was. You didn't get my little reference to Joe Rogan. I opened up my Twitter feed this morning thinking that I'd cleansed it, because I've been doing nostalgia posting and vibes and old cottages and things like that. Well, I'm deliberately trying to not have slop on my timeline, not have news slop, right, as a means to not doom scroll, to ride the tiger hat. I thought you'd enjoy this, right? And pure riding the tiger. Unfortunately, I opened Twitter this morning, and the first thing I opened was Joe Rogan gets pegged by his wife. That was it. Well, yeah.
You can't escape.
So I opened Twitter. I closed Twitter. I didn't retweet it. I didn't put it on your timeline. No.
Did he get pegged by his wife? Is that news or is that just speculation?
Apparently, he enjoys doing it that way.
Okay.
And was this an editorial or?
I don't know. It was just the first tweet I saw. It's just the first tweet I saw this morning. I didn't even know if it's true. It's just
So do you think he'll incorporate this into his show? You know how every show, no matter who he's talking to, he manages to have like a 15-minute section on UFC, and he might start talking about this instead.
Yeah, well, I think he mentioned it on his last show. I never watched Joe Rogan because I'm not like a stoner guy. You don't
spend your days in a flotation tank.
I have been trying to channel my nostalgia energy into a little side project, which I have to, as people are trickling in here, I have to encourage people to go and check out, which is my my Game of the Year series over on AA Gaming. What happened, Hat, and you probably know this as literally least frequent YouTube uploader of all time, is that now if you don't upload on a fairly regular basis, YouTube just takes your partnership away. YouTube just say, yeah, demonic, you know, you clearly.
Well, I never actually had a YouTube partnership. I don't think I ever got to the point. It said I did look into monetizing once, and it said you need to have like 30 hours of recent engagement, and you have to make a bunch of YouTube shorts. And I thought, well, how can I do, like, the sort of thing I do doesn't really work as a YouTube short, you know?
Well, they've changed it now, because I've had to reapply for it. And it's like, well, you have to have at least 3 videos from the past 90 days. So you have to upload 3 times within the last 90 days. And then it's like, oh, you can either have 4,000 watch hours or something like that. Or it says 10 million, literally 10 million shorts views.
What?
I was like, that doesn't 4,000 watch hours or 10 million shorts views. Who's making that?
This is all to earn like 20p off YouTube ads.
Yeah, it's mental. I just don't understand it at all.
I mean, if you want, I'll do a special feature, right? From now to next Wednesday, I'll see if I can get my channel monetized, and then I'll report back on the results. Just make sort of 5 videos on Donald Crowhurst or something.
So I mean, it's now like, I wasn't even eligible to reapply because I'd been dormant since acquiring AA Gaming. But now, with the launch of my new series, I'm now eligible again somehow. So I applied this morning. But let me show you, if you're not prepared for this, I do have a new image for this series, which is this.
Yeah.
This is what I call my Miles Edgeworth look.
Brave.
You're not actually aware of who Miles Edgeworth is, are you, Sherps?
I had to look it up. Yeah,
I don't know who that is.
He's like one of these manga characters. He's from a game called Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, and right, and he was like he was the prosecution lawyer. But everybody in those games dresses a bit like this. I wanted something. I mean, you'll remember those shades hat because I wore them a few years back.
I do remember those shades. I mean, I'm actually quite surprised to see you've still got them. I assume they've been lost, because at one point they were a great fixture of your look.
Yeah, well, they were one for me. You know those things where kids like fish things out of a duck. You know, they've got like a little duck thing. AAA, when she was like 2 years old, fished those out of a pond for me. And they're now my glasses, so they're like freebies from this fair.
I remember a quite surreal experience at a lift with you, where we were just going down from quite a high floor somewhere, and you just insisted on keeping these things all in the lift.
Yes, and I tweeted out a selfie from there. I remember.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you have a look here, this is now the image of the AA Gaming channel, which I'm revamping. And so far, there's been 3 videos. There's going to be a video every day. The best game before I was born, best game of the year 1983, game of the year 1984. Tomorrow, 85 will drop. And if it goes well, if you like and subscribe, if you get it, if you engage with it, if you watch it and all that, maybe we can keep it going until 2026. But it requires all of you to funnel energy into it to keep my energy up. Otherwise, as you know, I kind of lose interest once the initial excitement, wears off.
Are we not going to hear from your pal Morcar anymore then? Has he given up?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is actually law behind this. There's actual law behind if you have a look on Academic Agent Gaming, there is actually. You see that this is world building, friends. World building. Have a look here. There, Academic Agent buys Morcar channel in historic purchase. Right, and if you watch that video, it's a conversation between myself and Morcar, in which Morcar buys the channel. Do you want to watch it?
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued as to how that went. Okay,
let me talk amongst yourselves a second. I'll see if I can acquire it.
All right.
See if I can acquire it.
I fear we may not be seeing terribly much Mr. Curtis this week.
I'm admiring the Bowie-esque level of reinvention, though. Yeah, he resembles a sort of character that you might see in like Grand Theft Auto, like a sort of sleazy Cuban drug lord.
What I was hoping is that you'd open it, like somebody who doesn't know me would open it and be like, yeah, this is a guy who's into games and retro games. This is a guy who looks like he could be from a game. Right, that was my idea, So
did you once say that you discovered a small subset of people who only knew you through the gaming channel?
Yeah, there were actually people who were Morcar fans, pure Morcar fans. Well, no, seriously, like when the channel was bought by me, it was like, who's this guy? Why? What's happened to our gaming channel? Genuinely, there were people there, and there's also one person who commented on that first one with just oh my god, he's so hot. That was clearly not an AA regular. That was clearly, I didn't recognize the name. So yeah, that also happened.
I like to think there's a video somewhere on a gaming channel. Morcar succumbs to leverage buyout.
I've actually got the video here. This is talk about deep lore. But here we are. Look.
Back on the dreaded academic agent. Why are you here? I'm here at my alchemical studies, making potions. You dare to disturb me? Why are you here?
Hello, Morcar. Yes, it's been a while. Essentially, I'm here to buy the channel. I, academic agent, wish to buy Morcar from you. How about this magical cloak that I have for you? I will take over the administration of the channel. It will stop being called Morcar and it will start being called AA Gaming. And all of the gaming content that I have made will be, over the next couple of weeks, transferred here so that it may find its natural audience, which is not people who are into news and politics, and also YouTube punishes you for doing anything outside of your niche. YouTube thinks I talk about news all the time, so it doesn't like me doing anything outside of news. I don't show up in people's feeds. It's just the way things are. YouTube just wants you to do like the same thing. You have to have a separate channel to do separate things. You've got a gaming channel, Morcar, and you don't make use of it. You're kind of like, you're always busy. You're always in your study. You don't ever play any games, you Morcar. So, but I've made a few gaming videos, and I wanna have a gaming channel now. What do you think?
Interesting. You know what else is interesting? It's that imperceptible little pause between us speaking. Some people have speculated that we're the same person, but they are wrong, sick and wrong. I have a much deeper and more masculine and croakier voice than you. We went to the same school, so there are some similarities, but those people are much mistaken. Okay, I never wanted a YouTube channel anyway. Have it. I don't care. You can keep your cloak as well. Oh, actually, it looks like quite a good cloak. Fireball, magic missile.
Excellent. Are we really going to watch all of this? So you've seen enough, right? You've seen enough.
It's very surreal, isn't it?
Uncanny.
Remember that film where Tom Hardy plays both Cray twins?
I was just thinking of that, or Jeremy Irons in Dead Ringers. Yeah.
I was thinking of Face Off, starring Nicolas Cage
and John Travolta.
Yeah, because clearly me and Morcar are two different people. Yeah,
exactly. A bit of a pushover when it comes to negotiation, but I admired your conciliatory skills with him.
Yeah, he does end up. He ends up with a cloak as well, and then he buggers off and never to be seen of again. So, yeah. Anyway, that is the story, Hat, of how the channel became mine. and now it's not Morcars anymore. And you need to support the academic agent gaming, not only for that amazing bit of deep lore there, but for my new series, Game of the Year. I know you were all born in like 2004 or something, but you can learn something. You can learn something.
Oh, the audience. You don't mean us, Paul?
Well, I mean, Hat was born in about 2005 or something, wasn't he?
No,
I was playing
a bit older than that.
We've already talked about generations and our age and stuff. You know that I'm also an old gamer,
you're the same
80s
age as
gamer.
me. But when you were our age, you could kind of go back. The arcades, and I mean, I had a Spectrum secondhand that I was given in like the late 80s, which had a back catalogue. So I got to experience the early 80s as well in a strange sort of way. And of course, Simon is old enough to have been there. He was one of those kids who was kind of outside and not nerdy enough to play games, isn't that?
No, at first we had one. My friend Timothy had one of those, the very old Atari with the sort of wood veneer on it.
The 2600.
I assume that's what it was when I saw the picture. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, he had, and we literally played Pong on it, and we exhausted its possibilities in an afternoon.
Well, if you want to learn about the Atari 2600, the very first console war, how it literally buggered everything up in 1983, how Nintendo took over, and how many other things, I go through the history of video gaming, as well as giving my picks for the Game of the Year. Anybody want to guess what the Game of the Year for 84 was? Or if you haven't seen the video, want to have a guess? It's probably a tough one. 84 is not obvious. Many of the years are very obvious, right? For 85 is obvious, I would say, but 84 is less obvious. But
would it be E.T. the Extraterrestrial, the game?
No, that is one of the worst games of all time.
It's not Mac and Me, the game, is it?
No, although you're a little way there, because the main character of this game is called Mac, or Little Mac, I should say.
It's not Jet Set Willy.
No, although that is mentioned. That is an honourable mention in 84.
It's not Duck Hunt, is it?
Duck Hunt is an honorable mention as well. But
I've watched half the video. I haven't finished it.
Yeah, well, I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it. But
have you? Sorry, go on.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
Well, I just wanted to recently you've changed how you're using Twitter, right? So you actually are you trying to stop slop accounts appearing, among other things? Like, I'm trying to stop all that appearing in your feed, or
I'm trying to stop politics coming up on my feed, and it's a very interesting experiment actually, because I mean my feed now is like football stuff, Lord Sugar, who's one of the best Twitter accounts of all time. If you've never seen Lord Sugar, this is Alan Sugar. Speaking of gaming, the creator of the Amstrad CPC, which was like a kind of paupers thing. I mean, I get wrestling and football stuff and game stuff, but then I also get like the occasional news post sneaks through, and it is always from a certain section of the news crowd, and it's always slop as well. So I don't know how exactly the algo works, but it is interesting what you get pushed when you cleanse your timeline. Although I am seeing some footage of the police kicking some guy's head in Golders Green.
So right now you wouldn't, oh right, so you are still seeing some news in your feed.
Yeah. The occasional one sneaks through. Most of it isn't, but a lot of it, like,
is
you
that
do get
because
occasional ones.
Are you secretly in league with Basil the Great? Because a lot of people seem to be. A lot of people are like conspired to make him, like, his posts appear everywhere. Like, I see so many people, even Restore people. I see good. I see good people quote tweeting him because they it's like more effort to go and find it posted by.
He's a pain. He's a pain. Yeah.
It's sickening. Like, can people, for fuck's sake, like, quite seriously, can everyone in the audience stop engaging with him in any way at all, and like criticize other people for doing it? Like, help put a stop to this disease. It's disgusting.
In fairness to the algo, it is not purely the fault of Musk here, because I can see that the news posts that make my feed are generally retweeted onto the timeline by somebody I follow.
Yeah.
So maybe the next stage would be to unfollow everybody.
So you got to unfollow me, Morgan,
But I don't want to.
everyone.
But I don't. But that would mean that then it becomes like, oh, why has he unfollowed me and all that sort of stuff. So I don't want the drama. I don't want the drama of that. But ideally,
we'll get the drama. Yeah.
Ideally, I want to it was that Firaz from Lotus Eaters who retweeted the guy getting his head kicked in onto my timeline, for example. And I think the way Twitter works is it gives you a smattering of people you follow, and then a whole bunch of people you don't follow based on your interest, basically. So, and I've done a few experiments. Like I've asked Grok. I was like, "Hey Grok, this academic agent account, what's he about then?" Oh, it's a nostalgia account. He just posts about 80s games and
just as quick as that.
He cozy posts. It's only taken like I think I started doing it 14th of April. And I've asked her, I said, well, yeah, isn't that the account of that Nima Parvini, though, who runs that? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, he keeps his YouTube channel and his Twitter separate. Like, Grok is just coming up with all this stuff on its own. I was like, yeah, all right then. Okay. So,
Are we back to normal business this week then? Or is it, because I was beginning to feel nostalgic for the nostalgia arc.
No, I'm still
just continuing.
I'm still nostalgia posting. I don't think I've given any politics takes on my main timeline.
You got to watch out though; it doesn't just become a new form of slop, because there is an awful lot of fake nostalgia slop out there, as we found out.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's horrible AI images, and there was one that even caught me. That chip shop.
I was shocked and appalled to see that in my timeline.
Sorry about that.
Shocked and appalled.
Simon, what were you saying in our group about? You did a post about.
I put up a post. I found some what are called transcription discs. They're the old BBC records, such as you would have had playing sort of gentle light music over the test card back in the 70s. And I put up a post, and it just felt very different. I just sort of filmed my record player playing this. It was a version of the Beatles song Michelle, an instrumental version. It's quite soft and pleasant to listen to, but a lot of people. It sort of got a lot of people looking. I mean, it wasn't I don't do huge numbers on Twitter, but there was a very sort of regular fast tick over of people liking it and commenting on it. And it just felt like, people were sort of craving this sort of nostalgia. I know they're generally craving nostalgia in many ways, but it really grabbed people for some reason. I couldn't quite.
I feel like a lot of people have had enough of politics at the minute. I certainly have.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the tweets that got through was from Fuentes, who was just saying, I'm fed up with politics now. So I think there's a general fatigue at the moment of being politics out. Like when, I made a video on Monday on the Trump assassination attempt. I just don't care. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I just don't give a shit at all. And if you watch that video, you'll see I didn't watch the footage. I've seen no takes on Twitter, and yet I still pretty much predicted what everybody would say. And if you read the comments, it's like, people were saying that. And on Twitter, I saw like people were putting like screen grabs of things that people had actually said. And I was like, I'm now at the point, a decade deep into this, where you can pretty much predict what people would say ahead of time, including the schizos, including the America First MAGA crowd, including, I just know what everybody's going to say already. So, like, who cares? You know what I mean?
And dare I say it, this is where this final episode of Can't Get You Out of My Head eventually ties all the threads up, he said in a clumsy segue.
Yes, and in fact, I've called this episode "Everyone is an Alex Jones Schizo Now," and it should be obvious why I've called it that when we come to watch it. But yesterday, when I did office hours, there was a conversation going on between the dog-faced gremlin, that's James O'Brien, and that's Simon Marks, right? And those two were basically forced to admit that every single person on their YouTube video discussing the assassination attempt said that it was fake. And, I've been like in normie. I spent, the missus was away last week, so I did a lot of, dad stuff with AAA. And there was like a couple of kiddies parties on the Sunday. If you follow me on Twitter, you'd have followed that little saga. Actually, I was doing a bit of performative I was being a bit performative, Simon, because I wasn't actually dreading it as much as I was making out. It was fine. It was fine. But during that, I got chatting with some of the parents there, and obviously Trump came up, and I just said, "Oh well, I think he's a mad king," just to try to get off. Like I hate talking politics with the normies, right? And then one of the mothers was just like, "Yeah, I don't think the original assassination attempt was real. He did it himself, like the Butler one. Nobody batted an eye. That's a really common view, like in normie world. And since I mentioned that, a load of people then said in the chat and said in the comments that they know lots of people, like in liberal libtard land now, who just believe that the Butler one, the one where he fist pumped, the famous shot. A lot of people think that's fake. And the reason I'm mentioning this, Simon, is that conversation on LBC was like those two, Simon Marks and James O'Brien, basically kind of admitting that everybody's a schizo now. Everybody's Alex Jones. Everybody's a conspiracy brain now. So weird,
it seems to be a temporal compression that's going on. I've said this a lot about politics. We've had this real period of febrile concern with politics over the last 10 years since Brexit and Trump, and there's been too many elections, and there have been too many promises and too many betrayals in such a short time that people's awareness is sort of super heightened in this manner, which then tends towards everything losing credibility, because the rollover of the news cycles becomes so frequent with the same, and nothing happens, the same outcomes. I mean, I know it's a meme, but the sense of stasis persists, and so therefore anything anybody ever says makes absolutely no difference to the material situation, if anything, obviously, which gets worse.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to get too like esoteric and woo here, right? But one of the reasons for my disengagement and my attempts to de-slopify or fill my timeline with a different type of slop, I guess. There's no. I mean, we are in the fallen, abject world of 2026, so even nostalgia is its own type of slop, I guess. But to get away from the political slop, there is a respect in which, if you focus on something enough, kind of become a mirror of that thing. And I think that the libtards raged against Brexit and Trump so much that they ended up becoming like a mirror version of them. Yeah. So if you step back a little bit, it's literally just two groups of retards shouting at each other. And the only way out of it, I think, is to truly do the Evola ride the tiger thing, where it's a kind of non-reaction. It's a kind of way of disengaging, so that you're not part of the perpetual outrage cycle, where frankly your genuine reaction is, I just don't care. What do you guys think? Do you know what I mean? Because if you rage against Trump enough, you just become him. You just become exactly like him.
I without preempting too much, I'll certainly say it's part of where Curtis goes is certainly to disengage from. He'll outline 3 options at the end of the episode about where things could possibly go, and it feels very obvious that disengaging from the first 2 options is the only way that really makes sense. The implication is that things will persist or get worse by continuing to accept the priors with which we have been landed.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's get a move on then.
In Beijing to stop Bo from getting power. And in the middle of the conference, he and his wife were arrested and thrown into jail.
Have you seen there's a guy in the chat, Simon, who literally only watches with the banter now, and as soon as Curtis starts, he leaves. So right, I'm off. But I'm only here for pre-match banter. I'm not here for the girl.
So grim. How we've fallen.
there is something sort of admirable about that, but he's missing a lot of the best banter, which happens as we attempt to watch Curtis and then get sidetracked and go on a 2-hour tangent about Pokemon.
I've deliberately not done too much research for today's episode in order that we can force the footage to keep going.
Черные рясы, золотые погоны, все прихожане ползут на поклоны, призрак свободы на небесах. И откроет Сибирь каталог! Глубоко глубее склоны Сchizo и ведет протестующих Schizo под конвой.
Do you see these dancing nutbags for us? That's your favourite band, that is.
That's your favourite band. You're on the sensible centre left.
I mean,
you love
can
those
I
guys.
just this has to be some of the worst protests. I mean, I think there's a reason that Putin has lasted so long. It's because if this is his opposition, then it's a walkover, isn't it? I mean, come on.
I should just say, because when we did hypernormalization, I mistakenly said that these guys, Pussy Riot, and the Ukrainian feminist group Femen, the girls who do all the protests with their tops off and slogans written on their chest, I'd said mistakenly they were products of Surkov. Actually, I was completely wrong. My mistake. Surkov was on the way out by this point. By 2011, he'd failed to manage mass protests that were going on. And he was effectively replaced by a guy called Vyacheslav Volodin, who was much more hardline, who favoured authoritarianism, and Surkov's kind of era of sort of subtle management no longer kind of served the needs of the regime. So this was, if you like, you could say perhaps more or less grassroots or organic, in the way that after the years of stagnation in the Soviet Union in the 90s, there were these kind of art intervention groups like we saw with Limonov, Yegor Letov, the kind of Siberian punks. So this was a sort of continuation of that, what we call Russian maximalism in terms of protest, outrageous, ugly, violent, confrontational. But at this point, Putin is starting to think in terms of a more authoritarian approach.
This make me remind me of like Chumbawamba. Those sort of people, like lefty anarchists, sort of left libertarian, lefty sort of art student, a bit arty, a bit sort of punky and all that. It's that sort of people, right? It's not actually from the state, as far as I
mean. Was Chumbawamba ever quite this embarrassing? I mean,
well, good question. They're pretty embarrassing, but yeah, this is really bad, so probably not. I was just watching the lyrics here. I noticed they single out, pride marches. That's what this whole narrative of, Russia being a place where you like gays are, I don't know, victimized. It's all about just pride marches. Like, I don't think there's any laws against, there's like open homosexuality in Russia, just like anywhere. But they specifically want pride marches in city centres, and that's what
you can say what you want about Chumbawamba, right? You can knock them down, but they always get back up again.
These are the jokes, folks.
These are the jokes. What are these?
I drink a whiskey drink.
What's that doll that you knock over and it always stands back up because the bottom of it,
Oh yeah.
I have one.
Chumbawamba was like one of them anyway. They're really annoying. The one thing I wanted was for it not to stand back up, but it always does.
I need my own. One of my favorite things about those 70s comedians, and again, if you want a real deep cut, there's one where I watch 70s comedians, which Mr. D always said was the very first video of mine that he came across. I'm watching Frank Carson and Jim Bowen and all these sorts of characters. One of the things I love about all those guys is that they've got this way of when they tell a particularly bad joke or whatever, they've got this way of laughing at their own joke, and then they've got a little catchphrase to cover up the embarrassment of it. No, it'll be like, they get back up again. It's a cracker. It's a cracker.
Also, there's people in the chat saying that the thing we're talking about is called a weeble, but that's not what I think we're talking about. Those ones that was like a punching bag where you'd punch it and it would immediately fly back up.
The weeble is the same thing. There's an English name for it though. It's like
weebles. No, because weebles are the ones you put on a tabletop and they wobble around. But I'm sure what you mean. Do you remember? It was quite a big toy at one point. It was like it's like a punching bag on a ball, and there was a name.
Yeah,
for
I know the ones you're talking about.
Mm.
So they often have them in kiddies, like for like a 2 or 3 year old in a soft play. They have them.
But watching these lyrics come up on the screen, I was just thinking it's like way beyond before sophomoric stuff. It's like they just haven't got a fucking clue about anything, right? It's just general, it's sort of fascist, sort of authoritarian. They put people in prison. Well, so what? But these guys were picked up on by the West, right? I don't know exactly, but I was reading Standpoint magazine, which was like a equivalent of commentary, like neocon sort of thing. But and they loved these guys. But also, it's your British Council probably love them, or it's your security state. It's like military types, even NATO types were like. This was being promoted in the West, like as much as they could. I mean, obviously it's dog shit. There's no tune. There's no, but they were trying to make these guys heroes in the West at the time.
They kind of remind me of those Irish guys.
Kneecap.
That was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's triggering the disgust response in the Conservatives, but it's luring you into the slop dialectic. Your anger. Their agenda.
Well, to be fair, I only used it to make a cheap reference to Newman and Baddiel, who, with that material that I slung on Horus, sold out Wembley Stadium. The first comedians to do so in 1992. Yeah, they played Wembley Stadium they were huge. Newman and Baddiel were huge. They played it. They sold out Wembley Stadium in 1992. This was even before Three Lions on a Shirt.
I missed out on the stadium comedy thing, because I was in Australia. I wasn't aware of the Mary Whitehouse.
Yeah, they had this whole thing where there were 2 professors. It was called History Today, and there were 2 professors, and they'd be like, see that bit of shit on the floor? That's you, that is, and or they'd be like, I always remember one, he spits on the floor. He says, See that gob on the floor? That's your swimming pool, that is, and there's your mother swimming in it and stuff like that. So it was quite fun for its time.
But they were supposed to be highbrow, but all they did was just cuss each other in really base terms.
Yeah, it's kind of like an academic diss battle, I guess. But Rob Newman was kind of quite talented, and Baddiel was there as well. Much like Skinner and Baddiel. There was one who was quite funny, and Baddiel was there as well. Now he's become like a professional ethnic, as many of them have from that period.
Rob Newman took a funny turn, didn't he? He went less commercial. He went more just political and stuff, didn't he? He was like
he became all about peak oil and politics.
He got quite depressed. I met him at the Soho Theatre once when he was in that period, and he had. I said I didn't know who he was, and I was with some people who knew him working around the show, and they said, "Oh, it's Rob Newman," and they said, "Oh, yeah, he's been quite depressed lately."
Well, I mean, look, he was selling out Wembley, and now he's hanging around in
this is in the
London
early 2000s.
Yeah, interesting.
I watched that History of Oil show that he did. I watched that. I mean, it's fine if you're a sort of a lefty kook, I guess. He came across really serious, like he was on a cause. He wasn't about making the most money he could.
I'm surprised he didn't hang out in the same circles that that Mark guy that you like. What's his name? Simon.
Mark Fisher.
Mark Fisher. Yeah, he seems like he would have hung out with Mark Fisher.
I think there's a bit of a almost a bit of a love-hate with Mark Fisher's stuff, because actually I was reading more into Mark Fisher recently, and he himself sort of says he was moving right in some respects. actually. He hated the kind of preachy moralism of people like Billy Bragg, the Red Wedge, and all of that stuff on the left.
Right.
And this is why he was much more interested in the sort of the hauntological, the aspects of older culture that had resonances for now, rather than the kind of left rejectionist provocation that you see here, the kind of uglification of your response to the world in order to provoke, a combat dialectic with the conservative. And Fisher actually wasn't really into that. And they said actually when he was at the so-called the CCRU, the Cybernetic Culture Research Unit with Nick Land, he was already kind of moving in a slightly less obvious direction away from the sort of the left. So I think they kind of admire him as a thinker, but they sort of don't really take him on too much nowadays. I think they think he was an interesting diversion, but now they want to get back to fighting. They want to get back to class war.
There is a kind of left slop as well. Let's be honest, isn't there? That they don't really. I mean, I talked to that Caleb Morpian again, and that is going to be out tomorrow morning. That conversation, but I get the impression from him that there's very much a kind of left, like we rail against rightoid slop or right reaction, but there's very much a left reaction thing as well. That makes it almost impossible to have any real critical thinking or to kind of get anywhere because it all just becomes.
Which is why I think people like Navarra and Ash Sarkar are trying to take things back to class discourse to get it kind of back onto bread and butter, sort of.
I would too if I was her.
All right.
But tell the leftoids to ally with us and with like Christians or whatever, the equivalent of allying with leftists and Muslims.
Well, that's the thing. We don't really want the leftoids. What we want is
the thinking part.
The Mark Fishers, I guess. Like the Mark Fishers.
Killed himself though. Where are the living ones? I'm up for it.
Well, maybe Caleb Morpin, he's one.
Yeah.
He's one. Yeah. He's one. Well done for finding him. I didn't know about him. Actually, I had seen him on Kim Iverson's show, but yeah. Anyway, he didn't kill himself. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, the only issue with the kind of Caleb Morpin types, having looked into a lot of his stuff since he came on this channel, is if essentially the meeting point between people like us and people like him, are this kind of total dissatisfaction with the material and spiritual state of the way things are. Just correct, as a default. Yes. Yeah. But then the problem is that I think the worry is that kind of in the same way that the only thing that holds the quote unquote right together is just basically no one likes immigrants living in their country. Beyond that, you immediately get into trouble because I remember when he was talking about Stalin and one of his absolutely top points in favor of Stalin being good effectively was, well, if it wasn't for Stalin, you wouldn't have had Martin Luther King. Right. And it's sort of like, well, once you
crash back to earth, like
that was a bit of a misstep from Caleb, but
it's sort of like I would basically describe your worldview, AA, and to an extent mine, is basically Carlylean, right? Yes. And the problem is well, it's all well and good pragmatically kind of allying with a bunch of old school Marxists. But they basically had all the same problems that we've had the last 10, 15 years, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then what can you do pragmatically that won't just immediately hit, well, we believe in kind of total liberation of the essence of humanity, and we don't.
He does mention on this new conversation that we had that he believes in God and that his thing is not strictly speaking materialist anymore because they see the importance of moving beyond pure materialism. And there is this strain in Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party is also not purely materialist anymore. They've allowed Confucianism back in and some degree of spirituality and things like that. So,
and then then the odd thing about that is, if you combine kind of post-Marxist leftism with sort of holistic, slightly conservative spirituality, you just get Chesterton, basically. Or sort of like William Morris or something. Kind of how do you basically what is politics in a way? How do you do any of this?
Can I just bring up a comment from our friend Nathan CJ Hood in the chat? He says, Pendragon, this is the Pendragon Foundation, which is going to be restoring our castles. He says, Pendragon is a proper coalition. We have supporters from across the political spectrum, from the Green Party to Restore. We're hitting something deeper than partisan politics. I'd just like to put my back behind.
There we go. You can find points of commonality. And with someone like Caleb, and not just him, other leftists as well, you know, a general distaste for, you know, slop capitalism. This could be a starting point. Distaste for foreign policy decisions could be another starting point. Right? I'm talking about a destination, and we can get starting points of, you know, from that destination. We're never going to agree on everything. Otherwise, you know, we wouldn't be on different sides of the aisle. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but you and I are still going to get our hipster jackets on, go down to the Green Party.
We are going to go. We're going to go
flood
down
the
there.
zone.
We're going to go down there at some point. Maybe I'll wear my AA gaming getup. How do you think that will go down at the Green Party? Yeah. Anyway.
I imagine it'll be like the Witches. You know, like, have you seen the Witches, the Roald Dahl film? The book made into the film, and this happened in the book as well. But you know, the kid tries to hide in the witch convention, and you know, behind the screen or whatever. But they can smell him. They can smell a child. You will be detected. They'll be like a child. You know, you'll be like hide from the witch's roving eye. You know, like no, not really. No, they can't tell.
London. We lived among London hipsters too long. We know the codes.
Yeah.
Having disagreed with you publicly on you know, like allying with the left and Muslims and stuff, I do watch, you know, like their stuff. I watch Kim Iverson, who's sort of was lefty. I watch Caleb Maupin's own stuff sometimes. I watch Jimmy Dore since years back, and I watch Katie Halper and Aaron Mate, and I watch Max Blumenthal at the Grey Zone. Yeah, so I do watch a bunch of lefty stuff. But I mean, you know, I don't know any of them would ever interview even you or, you know, anyone like that. So,
well, we'll see.
Not? Why don't they? I don't know. They should do.
We'll see.
Go on the Grey Zone.
I still think they've got certain things that they're scared of touching as well. Like, I would say Brian Boletic, for example, who's a guy whose analysis I like a lot. He is borderline hysterical on the question of, is it the tail wagging the dog or the other way around? He can't discuss that without becoming like almost like an SJW, pretty much.
Are you sure he's not just a twat? I think he's maybe just a knob. You know, he's
maybe
not actually good analysis at all. Like, he just loves China, right? He just loves like brick stuff, you know. Like.
Now, before we get into low grade character assassination, I will just say that the bell is hovering in the background. Just that's all.
Oh, well, I will just say
the bell is there.
I'll just take this opportunity to say, I don't mind piping down so we can get through it. But we've not done anything wrong by covering things at such length and talking so much. Because, right, if you think about it, I saw someone in the audience earlier. I was saying, you know, like, I hate YouTube Shorts. They're worthless. I agree. Like, I hate this sort of, you know, they try and tip the whole table, the whole field towards TikTok behavior, you know, like just an autoplay feed of crap, you know, like I ain't doing that. And we are providing the exact opposite, like really stretched out, filled, like detailed examination of obscure stuff. It's great. It's the deepest lore. I love it.
This can't be turned into slop because of the way. If it was just us talking, then you could turn it into slop in some way or another. You could clip bits and kind of melt them down. But the problem is you can't do that with this because you need the context of the stream that we're watching in order for it to work. So, you know, it's perfect. The bells.
Come on.
It's anchored content. It's great. It's so unevanescent. It's brilliant.
All right.
Suddenly, at the end of 2011, a wave of protests burst out in Russia. As well as Pussy Riot, one night a young internet blogger called Alexei Navalny got up on a platform and he chanted the phrase that redefined Russia for what up to then had been an apolitical generation.
Партия жуликов и... Партия жуликов и... Это партия жуликов, воров и убийц. Но я повторю эту кричалку. Путин вор! Путин вор! Путин вор! Путин вор! Путин вор! Путин вор! Путин вор!
Putin was furious.
Pause, please. Sorry to pause again, but just this smacks, everything about this smacks of astroturfing, probably by the American intelligence services. 2011, year of the Arab Spring, you know, all this media managed, slightly ineffectual kind of disaffected voice type protest. I mean,
yeah, he was lionized.
And I remember there were endless documentaries made around this time, just about like sort of 2011, 2015, just about, you know, Russia being mean to gays, basically. And it was a huge Western intelligence push, I think. Again, I don't have anything to back that up. I just very certain that it is, because it looks like that.
I saw exactly the same. Yeah. In many channels. Yeah.
One of the things that amused me slightly is when he was like, and now I shall repeat the chant, Putin is a crook, or whatever it was. I just like that. I like the slight formal air with which he was like, yeah, I'm gonna repeat it now, and then you can repeat it after me. Like, anyway, let's carry on. He's dead now, isn't he? This guy.
Yes, he died in prison, was suspected of being poisoned. But yeah, this was the time of it was what was called the Bolotnaya Square protests that were happening in 2011, and this is when, as I say, the more authoritarian strain came in. Surkov was essentially sort of, in a way, trying to do what Dominic Cummings is doing now, trying to sort of, you know, get tech innovation happening. But then he sort of started criticizing Putin's cabinet, and so he was shuffled off in favor of this guy Volodin and this other chap, Dmitry Kozak, who was a bit of a soft managerialist technocrat type. But, you know, Putin definitely wanted to sort of have a very abrupt sea change here to manage what was going on.
It was complete hypocrisy. He had given the new Russian middle classes prosperity. Now they were stabbing him in the back. He grew increasingly paranoid, fearful that those groups who had benefited from the corruption would turn against him. And to protect himself, he shapeshifted again. Putin did the very thing that Edward Limonov had called for. He created a new organization called the
I thought he was going to say wide walking. Putin did the very thing he said he'd never do, wide walk.
Popular Front, to promote Russian nationalism. But Putin went much further than Limonov, because he summoned up a dark, frightening vision from Russia's past. It said that Russia as a whole, what was called Eurasia, was the last defense against a corrupt West that was trying to take over the whole world.
This is the Dugin idea, isn't it? Which is has been somewhat trendy in some circles in recent years. Whether I agree, whether I believe that or not is a different question. But I do believe that the West is somewhat corrupt and does need defending against by somebody. So,
and you do see, you know, you've watched the Oliver Stone interviews with Putin. Yes. He definitely uses that to his advantage as well by spinning it as, well, look, I'm at the head of a multicultural confederation. You know, in a sense, I am the Blairite vision.
And it has to be said that by all accounts, Putin does genuinely believe that. There is something kind of very almost ideologically kind of Millian, as in, you know, J.S. Mill, where he like, in a very classical sense, he believes in this sort of very, as I say, just very liberal worldview in that sense. I mean, he does give speeches about, you know, Russia being great because of multiculturalism, and you know, he's not quite the caricature that they'd have you believe a lot of the time.
And it would be interesting to know how they manage what we have a struggle with in the West, of the idea of, you know, civic nationalism being based on values, whereas, like we saw last week, he was in, you know, Tatarstan, which is a Muslim kind of province, and yet he is engaged as any kind of, you know, David Cameron type of multiculturalist politician. In bringing them in, and there's no talk of values or anything like that, but there's something that clearly works because he was looked upon very favorably in places like that.
Yeah, it's
and Chechnya as well.
It's very, very true, and I must say I do somewhat agree with Curtis in the previous episode where he said that one of the remarkable things about Putin early on was that he didn't have much of a worldview at all. He was kind of just a blank bureaucrat. I think that a lot of his worldview is basically informed by circumstance. I don't think he went in with kind of liberal priors. I think basically like any other politician in the West, quote unquote, he's faced with a technocratic kind of capitalist machine, and you basically have to, you know, bow in certain ways to make it work. You know, for example, there's been a lot of immigration from Central Asia into Russian cities to make up the labor shortage caused by the war in Ukraine, and that's there's actually been quite a bit of kind of, you know, nationalist, anti-immigrant sort of type backlash we'd be familiar with in this country, in Russia, over that, even though they're technically immigrating from other parts of the same country.
I remember watching those Oliver Stone interviews with Putin, and it was a really notable bit where Putin stressed how much peace, like, his regime or the Russian state has managed to, you know, have between what is a federation. Well, I don't know what. It's called a federation, right? But an empire of hundreds of nationalities. I think many of them Muslim, of course. There's other diversity as well, but you know, you got Muslims, not like there's Tatarstan plus what used to be Turkestan, plus there was all those Soviet republics like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and stuff, which were generally Muslim. Plus there's the whole Caucasus Mountains region, loads of that is Muslim. Plus there's stuff further out east, you know, to like Kyrgyzstan and stuff. And it's I got the impression that Putin, whatever he may think or have thought before he became president, he just basically has to have peace between all those different peoples. Like, Russia had problems enough already. You know, it was already a state that was barely functioning in some ways. So, you know, at one point in early Russian Federation years, like, couldn't even account for all its nuclear weapons and stuff. You know, all sorts of chaos. There's really no other option for them, like, while they're, you know, in a revival project.
I believe controversially, this is also the case in America, by the way, that the American government can never not have a colorblind ideology, just owing to the raw demographic reality there. It has to have a universalist one, which is probably why white nationalism is a non-starter in America, unless you want to break the country up. The only hope of the Jared Taylors and so on getting their, you know, getting what they want is if America ceases to be an actual country. You're never going to get the government of America not having that as a view, because it's just the nature of multi-ethnic empire. What the conclusions Putin will reach will also be the conclusions that any American government, including Trump's government, is going to come up with, and that's true of all empires ever. It was also true of the British Empire too.
Someone who was it UAA or somebody said to me recently, and it's just a very straightforward statement, like, empires promote civic nationalism. That is a thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's both where the ideology comes from almost every time. Plus, it's something that every empire sees a need to do.
Yeah, and I just don't think there's a way around it. If you want to be a power on the level of Russia or America, and you know, China, for what you say, you know, yeah, Han supremacist, whatever, but they still basically have a universalist doctrine, the Chinese Communist Party. So it's like you're never going to get a kind of racial supremacist, large scale empire that's gonna last. That was actually one of the lessons of history that a lot of 19th century British Empire types talk about in their history books. So it's just one of those things, really. Is that I wonder now, a lot of people now on the sloppy side of things, you know, they want to use that stuff from the SPLC to try to claim that, like, all white nationalism was a psyop, right? I wouldn't go that far, but I do think that, especially in terms of American politics, it is a kind of cul-de-sac. It realistically cannot go anywhere.
But it's,
if you
like,
want to keep the country apart together, I mean.
If you treat the USA as an empire in that formulation, then it is just another example. White nationalism in America would be just another example of how nationalism is against the empire, like including in the homeland, because the empire is against even the native, the original people from where it came. It's just a ruling class thing. Like, that's how I see it anyway. Like,
So I don't know. I just don't see it as a realistic, viable vehicle, because it's just never going to be allowed to happen. If we were put in, if the four of us were put in charge of America, or in fact in charge of Europe, or indeed in charge of this country, you'd be faced with the genuine challenge of like, well, what the hell are you going to do with all the people? Like in America, we're talking about like almost half of the entire population. You have to govern for everybody. That's just a raw fact. There's no like, oh yeah, we're going to deport half the population. It's just never going to happen. Especially the ones who've been there for hundreds of years, like the African Americans and so on. So for me, if you're a quote unquote white nationalist without being a secessionist, right?
Secessionist.
i.e., you want, I don't know, like let's declare Alabama our own or something. That would be more realistic than the idea of like, oh, I'm for America as a nation and white nationalism. Is just like incoherent, completely incoherent ideology.
That has been a dispute among American white nationalists. I heard Mike Painovich saying just yesterday or the other day when he was talking to Jose Nino that it's never been his aim, or it isn't his aim, to expel the black population from America at all. The people who came over from the Atlantic slave trade. That shouldn't be their aim. He sees them as like they're just as American as everyone else. Whereas Richard Spencer, like not that he ever said that blacks should be expelled either, but he's like explicitly against secession. Like the more they sort of focus on, because they associate secessionism with like the Mises Institute and libertarians. And and he's like so concentrated on being a statist above all else, like even above being a nationalist, I think. I agree with you though. Analytically, it makes sense to be a secessionist as well. Exactly.
I think
split the country.
I think Richard Spencer's view is even more strange, which is that if you understand whiteness, quote unquote, esoterically and truly, then you would be a globalist. Then you would be a imperialist, globalist, universalist. And the best thing that you can hope for is just to rule in that, like be the ruler in that system, with everybody else kind of subjugated to your thing. That's his view.
The classic, arguably the kind of most important lab condition case of this is post-40s South Africa, right? Where you basically ended up with this entire problem played out on a local scale, where extremely ethno-nationalist white Boer ruling class, ruling over a nation that was full of Bantus and mixed peoples and Indians and so forth. And they basically ended up with this same sort of doom loop problem where what do you do? Because if you actually examine the ideology that they were basing that system on, a lot of it was predicated on actual, basically just universalist liberalism. It was this belief that over time you would develop a society where all the races could live equally and with the same amount of civilizational progress. And then they ended up basically saying, okay, well, we can't keep this going. We'll just give in and let the Afrikaner really keep their mines and factories and things, and sell out the poorer whites. It's as you say, you're always going to be basically bowing under the demands of the circumstances in which you live.
The thing is that any state, any government has its own incentives, constraints, and set of kind of like conditions under which it has to operate. And I simply just don't believe you're ever going to get a government in any country that as a basic premise is going to say, yeah, we're just going to halve the population. We're just going to kick half the population out. It's just never going to happen. They're much more likely to do what Putin has done here. And don't forget, he's not really facing democratic considerations here. He's more or less has dictatorial powers. But the raw reality is that in Russia, it's just not a goer. You just cannot, like, what's he going to do? Kick out, you know, half of Kyrgyzstan or Chechnya or all these different groups who've been there for a long time? He has to govern them. He has to. He has no other choice. And that's basically the reality that's going to face any American president or, you know, Ursula von der Leyen type character, which is not to say, right, that they should keep on importing millions of people, or they can't deal with, you know, people who've arrived here in the past 5 years or whatever. I'm just saying that, you know, the absolute aim that a lot of people have, I just don't think is realistically ever going to happen, even if those people like suddenly found themselves in government, because you're not going to know until you're there, right? So, you know, anyway,
what you said about in South Africa being a place where, like, yeah, the eventual settlement was where like white landowners and the owner class got to carry on fairly well, but the white sort of lower classes were screwed, right? Is that the bit that appealed to Richard Spencer? Or is that because that sounds right?
Possibly.
The guy who was born to own a farm or whatever it was. He's a landowner, right?
I'm not sure. I mean,
that's how Richard Spencer has been able to spend so much time chatting. He was born into
wealth,
productive land ownership. Yeah.
Well, I mean, possibly, though. In retrospect, I dismissed Richard Spencer for quite a few years, but in recent times, I've sort of come around to a lot of the things he's been saying.
It's a good point in the chat, by the way. Somebody says Putin has to play super nice to the minorities as the West wants to create more breakaway states. So, of necessity, the entropy that surrounds him from the West has to be resisted.
But, you know, that is a huge driver, and it cannot be underestimated as to why the civil rights regime in America is the way it is, because it was a strategy of Stalin, of the Soviet Union, of the communists in general, to use the treatment of the black population in America as a stick to beat America over the head with. So one of the reasons that it's like the kind of minority worship has developed in the way it has in America really was a kind of, like, in a way, a response to, you know, criticism from, you know, what was then the Second World Bloc, you know, during the Cold War. They needed to put their best face on, and they couldn't really do it if they were shown to have Jim Crow laws or, you know, be mistreating minority populations. So that is really like a big part of it. And now you're saying that, you know, Putin faces the mirror situation, that if he mistreated his minorities, America would then do the same to him, right? So, you know, anyway, let's carry.
Reminds me a bit of the explanation for you know, the CIA's promotion of shit art as well, right? You know, Stoner Saunders' book.
Yeah, which was a reaction to a Russian social realism or whatever it was. Yeah,
that's the excuse. Yeah. I reckon it was just actually the CIA guys actually just preferred the left, basically.
Yeah, maybe.
It was a great power nationalism that challenged America's idea of its exceptionalism. What Putin was promoting was Russian exceptionalism. It was epitomized by the Night Wolves, an extreme nationalist motorcycle club who announced that they were now Putin's bodyguards.
I've got a problem with this. I've got a real problem with it.
I really like it.
Let me explain to you the problem. This is Russia, yeah? What it looks like, what it reminds me of, is WCW Wrestling, 1997, 1998. They had an event called Hog Wild, where down somewhere in the deep south, they invited all these Hell's Angels to come and watch the wrestling, right? And it was literally guys like this with this sort of music, right? What's the
Mm.
problem? What's the problem? It looks too American. This looks too American. The aesthetic of it is American. In the background, I've got Harley Davidsons and ZZ Top fans.
Ah,
and
well,
fucking,
no,
you know.
yeah, the Russian equivalent of these are Ural motorbikes, I think, that they ride in Russia.
You understand what I'm saying,
Yeah,
though? It's
yeah.
looking to the West. It's America coded. I don't like it. I think it's a problem.
I have to say, I'm not wholly convinced that this is America coded because, and I'm no expert on this because it's not really my type of thing, but isn't all this aesthetic and this type of music, a lot of it is very Scandi and very German as opposed to American, like this particular type of aesthetic.
Just for interest, people in the chat, it's a Russian band called We or Us. Yeah, it seems to translate as a song called December. The lyrics is heavy metal. It's fear and power dancing through the air. That same old beast is everywhere. Burns down all, no matter your name. Bathes the mountains in blood and flame. A heart replaced with steel and fire. A will that feeds the devil's desire. We won't leave behind our hometown streets. We will make it through. We won't retreat. Our roots are deep. This land holds tight. We will sing our songs into the night. We won't leave behind our hometown streets. We will make it through. We won't retreat. Our roots are deep. This land holds tight. We will sing our songs into the night.
Iced.
Yeah, I have to say I did like the one chap on the bike just dressed in a white Tsarist admiral's uniform as opposed to like leathers.
I just wait till you see the leader of this movement. I mean, he's been going since the 80s. He's a guy called Alexander Zalstanov, and his nickname is the Surgeon, which is
This guy in the
I think he'll come in a minute. He's the most Chad Russian looking bloke ever. I mean, you'll see he's going to do a gravelly voice speech. It's got the most aggressive optics of all. And he was actually, I think he started as a dentist, but he became this kind of ultra nationalist guy.
Can I ask a quick question about the practicalities of motorbiking around Russia? Russia's absolutely massive. You're a biker, Simon.
Yeah.
How long can a bike go realistically without breaking down?
This is an interesting thing. I remember because I've had a friend who used to run a motorbike shop, and a guy bought in one of these Ural motorbikes that they make in Russia, and they're sort of like somewhat different from, like, I ride a Honda, which is just a very reliable motorbike, Japanese, etc. But the Russian bikes were kind of made very heavy duty, and it was almost like he was saying basically you could replace bits of it with tractor parts. So they were kind of fairly versatile and rugged in that way. I mean, very heavy and quite wide and big, but they were able to be like the AK-47, actually, technology that can be fixed quite easily.
But in my imagination, if you try to get from like Moscow to any other city, it's the equivalent of driving from like London to fucking Istanbul or something.
It's a massive continent. Yeah, I mean, I think I went and looked at it on the map. I mean, people don't forget to do that, but you should occasionally go and look at the size of the Russian Federation on the map and just look at the vastness.
But you should look on a spherical map, though, if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
No, because you know about the Mercator projection problem. It really badly distorts the sides. Like Russia isn't as big as it looks on those maps. Just for people who don't know
Russia per se, the broad federation though, stretching from west to east though.
But the map distortion on flattening a map is so bad that it makes Russia look much bigger than Africa, but Africa is actually much bigger than Russia. It's that much distortion.
All right, okay.
Russia is vast. It is obviously the biggest country in the world.
I mean, to give you an example though, from Moscow to St. Petersburg is a 7.5 hour drive. It's 700 kilometers distance, which is, I mean, quite a long way.
That's more like Britain, right?
That's like I don't know, like London to the north tip of Scotland.
And remember, Moscow to Petersburg has modern, well-serviced paved highways. Many parts of Russia you'll be on, you won't be on roads that good. It'll take longer.
Очнулась евразийская держава, отлитая в сечении золотом, и русский меч из ножен
Simon.
That's Zaldastanov, yeah.
Славой мы вынимаем в трепете святом Державе той истоки нашей силы.
I still think it's Western coded personally. That's why I still maintain that there's something about the biker gang that comes from the West, not from Russia.
Just to pour in a bit of stuff about it, he's a big admirer of Stalin. He's said to be very homophobic. He was one of the torchbearers when they did the Winter Olympics. Do you remember that in Sochi? And he's got high state
Better than
decorations.
Shami Chakrabarti and Doreen Lawrence.
He formed what was called the anti-Maidan movement, which was the kind of pro-Russian lobby when it came to Ukraine back in, I think, 2013, 2014. And he suggested, forgive me, YouTube, he said an alternative name for the Russian anti-Maidan movement that he headed, an alternative name could be, quote, death to faggots.
I'm warming to it.
He's a bit intense.
I agree with you, AA, that it's a bit, like a biker gang. It just makes me think of the Hells Angels, basically. And just Western biker gangs. But it does have the Orthodox cross on his arm there, doesn't he? His right arm.
Yeah.
That is distinctly Eastern European, isn't it?
Well, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid, but there's... I don't know. We would have to look into the history of bike gangs. We go back to Brighton Rock. That's the first one here, isn't it? Brighton Rock
with David Attenborough, with Richard Attenborough.
Richard Attenborough. David Attenborough's just in 100, by the way. I've seen him everywhere this week, and I'm sure your mate Ben Pyle would be very upset to note that he used his 100th birthday party speech to bang on about climate change yet again. So.
Oh no! People were talking about putting him on banknotes, weren't they? He was popular more than Churchill or something.
He's a ghoul.
Like I prefer him to Churchill. I prefer him to Churchill. I kind of like Attenborough. I started watching. I was really shocked to discover that he's still doing stuff and he still sounds good. And then I was like, surely that's AI. He sounds too good. And apparently it's not. He still does everything himself. He's got a brilliant voice for a 100-year-old. He sounds perfect.
Bloody hell.
I don't know if he bathes his tonsils in honey and lozenges or something, Simon. But
Manuka honey as well, right?
Probably, yeah.
Well, he probably knows the right bees. If anybody knows the right bees, it's David Attenborough, right?
Totally.
Or does he actually drink like adrenochrome or something, maybe?
Anyway,
no,
go on. You finish.
Well, I agree. Like David Attenborough does have a body of good work to look back on, so I prefer him to Churchill as well. Sorry, Don.
I was just going to say it's worth looking at this popular front movement. The ostensible facts out there say that essentially this was driven by Putin and Volodin and in coordination with this Zaldastanov guy. I mean, Putin goes on rideouts with this guy. There's footage out there of him on a big bike as well. So, but again, how much that actually came from Vlad, I don't know, but that's the story. That it was something that he personally took an interest in driving because he was kind of sick of Surkov's postmodern theatre.
Sorry, just Simon, did they say that Putin appointed this squad as his bodyguard troop?
That's what Curtis says, that they sort of appointed themselves. His kind of Praetorians almost.
I mean,
yeah.
If I had to choose between a bunch of MI5 spooks and this gang, I would choose this gang. I mean, I'd easily choose. I mean, imagine like walking around with this lot.
Yeah.
It's not very rock and roll, though, is it?
There wouldn't be much endless conversation with them, though.
But by which I mean, our rock and roll thing is protecting the president. It's very kind of like it's rage for the machine. It's very rage for the machine.
Yeah, I suppose so.
No sleep till bedtime, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's just funny, like non-rebellious.
A lot of Western rebellious bands have become very pro the status quo and pro the establishment. Like Rage Against the Machine themselves are basically like for the establishment now. So,
well, it's
ironically, the band Status Quo didn't do that. So well done to them.
Do you remember when the Democrat Party in America used to bring out all these kind of old cowboy types who were like, well, I love my beer, I love my guns, and I love trans rights. You know, like it is. I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that's sort of the Russian equivalent of that?
Yeah. All right. I mean, they started doing it with Eminem at one point. Do you remember? When Eminem became like an establishment shill for a while? Anyway,
and some of the punk bands as well, right? Like, was it NoFX or some of the like quite political punk bands?
Yeah,
like, got on board totally with the the 2020 agenda. It was fucking.
Yeah, just to say there is a sort of comparator with the West. I was talking to you guys before the stream about the Hells Angels in America, which I think started in 1947. A lot of it was basically ex-military guys wanting to sort of recapture the adrenaline and adventure of combat. So there was a lot of surplus military energy that goes into the idea of these big aggressive biker gangs. Yes, things like the Hells Angels and the Coffin Cheaters and all that, and we know the stories. It devolves into crime and drug dealing, but there's some sort of profoundly chauvinist element there that speaks to an idea of nation as well. So I mean, I won't gainsay what's going on with these guys in Russia, but it's interesting.
I think a lot is gained from the fact that you just anytime you get a big group of lads together like this, it's going to produce certain types of attitudes and outcomes as well. Do you know what I mean? As far as I can see, they're all blokes, aren't they? Big nerdy blokes. So it's just gonna produce a certain type of atmosphere.
They won't be going to see Glengarry Glen Ross at the Old Vic.
No. Well, not that one.
Not that one.
No. They'd be fist pumping at Alec Baldwin's speech though from. Or maybe not if he's a Stalin fan. Maybe he'd be like a disgusting capitalist pigs. Anyway, let's go.
Simon, about the Glengarry show, is that in any way related to your sort of growing links within the Green Party? Or the advert for it just looked kind of like a Green Party poster or something?
I confess, I've been a sleeper all this time for Polanski's outfit.
The sort of woman I imagine. Do you remember do you remember there was that show Teachers? Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember there was the black female kind of girl boss who came into Teachers, who was kind of everywhere for a while. She was like in every like low rent BBC drama for a few years there. She had like kind of short dreadlocks and she was just a girl boss and she was black. Do you remember that actress? I see if I can pull her up now. I'll tell you what I'm on about. Hold on.
Yeah, wasn't she in?
I'll just address Oswulf in the chat. Yes, Ferro and I are probably going to go to see this Glengarry Glen Ross. Check it out and do a review. So,
was she in Nathan Barley as well?
She was in it. She was in basically bloody everything. Oh, yeah, she is. Yes, she is. Okay, this actress here. Her name is Nina Sosia. Sosia. This woman here.
I know the
For
one.
some reason, I just imagine this woman will be in that Glengarry Glen Ross, but she just seems like the sort of production that would have her in it.
Yeah, not her, but similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it. I absolutely knew it.
But she's got brass balls in her pocket. Like she carries brass balls.
Yeah, she's like the Alec Baldwin. Always be closing. She says in her, casualty standard of acting. No offense to Casualty.
Напомнить им историю России и перед врагами русский меч.
The Nightwolves put on mass shows that dramatized the paranoid conspiracy theory that America, led by Barack Obama and the bankers, and the Illuminati, were planning to undermine Vladimir Putin and destroy Russia.
I mean, are they lying though? Are they lying?
They're being that paranoid.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even really a conspiracy. I mean, that is just the outwardly stated aim of a lot of Western governments. It's just what they say they're doing.
Yeah.
I would just say, like Glengarry Glen Ross, they've kept the male name of the company for commercial purposes, right?
Well, the company is not. If you know Glengarry Glen Ross, it's the real estate they're selling is the Glengarry
Leeds
estate and the Glengarry Leeds, and they're selling Glen Ross Farms or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, like that, like it's That doesn't sound female. Doesn't sound, Anyway.
I'm now looking at the career of Nina Sosania.
Sausages.
And she literally has exactly the filmography I would expect of this woman. Okay, let me just read you some of the things she's been in. The Bill.
She was in Nathan Barley.
She was in The Bill. She was in Prime Suspect 2. She was in Jonathan Creek. She was in Doctors, which is literally like if you ever see that show Doctors, it's got that BBC acting style that I hate so much. That you also see in Casualty, right? She was in Teachers, which is where I know her from. Apparently, she was in Love Actually. She was in Nathan Barley, like you said. She was in Doctor Who. Of course, she was in Doctor Who.
Holby City.
Don't say she was in Shakespeare Retold, which was obviously shite. It's just W1A. I used to watch that show. It was that was pretty funny. W1A. I kind of enjoyed that.
Was she in? And I'm not joking. This is not an insult, but was she in Spooks?
She was in.
She should be in Spooks. She should be the head of MI6 in Spooks.
She was in a show called Screw as a prison guard. As a prison guard, not Spooks.
I thought you meant like a hardware salesman.
Yeah. She was in a show called Good Omens, His Dark Materials. She was in the Dark Crystal reboot. She was in Thunderbirds film. Bloody hell.
I wasn't any of them.
Terrible career that she's had. And I bet she's annoying in every single one of those things. Like
and you just reckon she might be in Glengarry Glen Ross, right?
If she's not in it directly, there'll be somebody like her. Do you have the poster, Simon, of the Glengarry Glen Ross? Let's study.
Is Anna Friel in it? I don't know. For some reason, I'm thinking. Well,
I don't.
Was Jenny Eclair in it?
Jenny Eclair. Who was the woman who played in Top Girls? What was her name? She was in a lot of those Play Today things. Gary Glen Ross women cast.
Benjamin in it.
Let's have a look.
Is Geeta Sayal in it?
Oh, look, she's almost in it. I told you there'd be a character like that. She's almost in it. It's not actually her. It's just someone who could be her. So there you go. Look, there you go.
It's going to be shit, lads. Don't bother. You're just wasting time. It's going to be rubbish.
I see that actress in the top middle. She's in a lot of girl boss roles now as well. She's in a lot of girl boss roles.
Dear Varma, yeah.
Yeah.
Ferro, if you're listening, just don't go. Just tell Simon you're not going. It's going to be rubbish.
We're cultural explorers. We go so you don't have to.
No. This need to hate watch. It's all part of the economy of slop. They want you to hate it, Simon. It's like when whenever a new woke Lord of the Rings or woke Batman comes out, right?
The siren call of the slop.
Who's first in line to see those films? It's not blue-haired social justice warriors. It's woke slop channel. Did you see what they've done to this franchise? Now they've got to be in there to see it first, so they can make videos about how terrible it is.
How are they going to turn a brutal assault on the male ego and capitalism into a story of female empowerment? How are they going to turn Glengarry Glen Ross into a story of female empowerment? That's my question. There's no positive spin put on it.
Yeah, catty glances and waspish remarks. That will do it. That's the substance of it. When Pacino calls Kevin Spacey a very rude word, they'll replace that with just like a sort of like passive aggressive or sort of coldness for ages, for days.
I think it will be. I don't think they'll actually do anything girl bossy. That will just literally replace all the parts with women. So it'll just be very dykey. That's my yeah. Well, like it'll be all the same lines, all the same really masculine ego, but just played by kind of BBC RSC women.
Glengarry Cell Block H.
Yeah. I can.
You're selling to me now, Simon. I kind of. I like Business Cell Block H.
Right. That's
the
it.
thing is, I mean.
The bell has spoken.
Put that coffee down, Hat. Put that coffee down. The show is for analyzers of Adam Curtis only. All right, let's carry on.
In the West, after the crash, the bankers had also now become the villains. They were at the centre of conspiracy theories that said that they were running a global system of corruption.
Conspiracy theories, really? I mean, is this just not like a mainstream, do you know?
This is referencing people. I'd seen the thumbnail about Twitter quite a lot. People were posting it on tweets, and I didn't really look into it. It's really referencing a film that came out in 2017 called The Spider's Web, which is basically about tax fund offshoring that goes on in all the British dependencies, and speculates that, you know, vast amounts of wealth are obviously being hidden, which we kind of anecdotally know of, but it goes into in a very it's the sort of film, a bit like lots of sort of documentaries that get, you know, touted on Twitter. You know, it'll really excite people's passion about this and the sense of injustice. But, you know, a lot of it was revealed. If people remember the Panama Papers back in 2016, you had that Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca, who they had a whistleblower inside who dumped a massive information, about 11 million documents, revealing the various banks around the world that were funneling stuff into these places like the Channel Islands and Jersey and the Caymans and so on. Notable banks who were doing it for English clients or British clients were people like Credit Suisse and Coutts and Rothschilds on Guernsey. So, you know, a lot of the controversy at the time, if people remember, about David Cameron, whose father we briefly covered in a previous Curtis doc. So, you know, his fortune, apparently there was only a small amount that was kind of, if you like, legible to UK authorities, because it's speculated. I mean, sort of 75-80% of it is hidden offshore, and we're talking around sort of 10 million, something like that. And of note, his estate in the UK was only remarked to be about a couple of million, because most of it is allegedly hidden away. So
when did we mention him before in Curtis?
It was actually Ewan Cameron, the doctor at the Allen Memorial Hospital in Century of the South, and somebody says, "Oh, his father was he was David Cameron's father." They had the same name, Ewan Cameron, but they weren't the same person. And I did a little thing on Cameron's father when we did that show, and I think at the time, I remember looking at the research. I looked into his inheritance, and it seemed like only a very modest amount of money for someone like David Cameron. And then this particular documentary, if you go and look at it, it's out there on YouTube, The Spider's Web, and it talks about this phenomenon, this idea of the Second Empire, that after the end of the British Empire, after World War II, essentially it was the overseas tax havens that became the real bulwark of Britain's international power, and how the City of London, the corporation of the City of London, as a private company, manages kind of, you know, if you like, extra legally in terms of UK territory, these vast flows of wealth for various dodgy actors and countries and dictatorships around the world, as well as lots of high net worth individuals, the sorts of people we're all familiar with in the Tory party, in the city, blah, 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 etc. Anyway, that's what he's going to be referring to here.
I watched that documentary as well. Like the idea of the internal empire that has continued, and as us being subject of it as much as anyone else around the world, I think is an interesting idea. It does slightly stray into Tom Luongo's City of London stuff as well. But anyway, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just contemplate this for a moment.
Did you did you guys see this?
Yeah,
mentioning the Rothschilds. How dare you mention the Rothschilds, Simon?
Exactly.
You have to be faced with this woman now. It's out of bounds.
I blame the internet. It told me.
So Oh yeah, have you ever read that book, The Great Transformation by Polanyi?
No, I haven't. No.
Do you know of it?
I've heard the name, but I haven't read it. No.
Just let's talk about that another time. Ding 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 ding.
Yeah. It's very much worth reading. Interesting book.
Yeah, I have also just seen the worst bit of slop I've ever seen. You know, we started this stream about me trying to cleanse my Twitter timeline, right? I was just trying to get a picture of that bint that I just that I just showed you, and this is the sort of thing, like in amongst all the nostalgia and stuff, right? Like there's a couple of tweets that get through that like this. Let me just show you the sort of thing that makes its way onto Twitter front page now. Let me just show you this.
And they're off. The wheel is flying. Oh, they're moving quick. Look at the size of those lads' eyes.
Now, that's obviously AI, right? It's obviously AI generated, but there's so much of that crap all over the place. We talk about ruining the internet, ruining life in general. Why has it got hundreds and hundreds of likes and retweets?
Well, that's to keep your eyes off the allegedly $8 trillion in assets that's hidden in the Cayman Islands.
A wave of leaked documents seemed to show that the City of London had become the centre of an international network that was being used to hide the illegal fortunes of kleptocrats from all around the world. Hundreds of billions, it was alleged, was being taken through London and then hidden in a network of secretive offshore territories.
Oh, that explains a lot. Account based in Rwanda. Yeah, I thought so.
That anti-corruption investigators called the Second Empire. But the problem was, no one could actually find out how much of this was really true. Because of something else the City of London had always prided itself on from the time of the Empire. Its discretion.
How's the market?
Fern? It's not much doing.
Nothing else?
As it's you, I'll give you something to take me.
Sorry, old man. Wrong way, I'm afraid.
Is that all? Has he done it?
No, he's evidently not satisfied. He'll try somewhere else.
Now, the discretion that the city was still so proud of had in reality turned into a force shield that stopped any proper investigation of what was really going on.
Sounds a lot like modern day Westminster, doesn't it? That's flavour for you.
This is like sort of Adam Curtis discovers what an elite is. So it's also, I mean, I have to say, it's probably a weakness, but I would be happy living under capitalist technocracy if those men were the technocrats and not, Tata Steel and some awful Mark Carney type. I mean, I know he's not the worst, but you know what I mean. I would rather have it be some good chap doing it than the ones we have.
Was that from a movie? That scene?
What that little 60s thing? I couldn't identify what it was. It was a dramatized thing. I couldn't work out which movie it is. There's an actor in there called Robin Walker who I recognized, but I can't trace what the actual movie is. So it might have been there was sorts of like semi-educational corporate films that might have been done around that period. It might have been an illustration of how trading works in the city and so on, but I couldn't work out what it was.
It was a far cry from the end of Trading Places, anyway.
Eminent law firms immediately issued libel writs to anyone trying to find out what was happening. But by suppressing any real information, the suspicions grew that there was a dark, frightening world of dictators, drug lords, Russian gangsters, arms dealers, and international bankers, all thriving together in the shadows of the City of London, which reinforced the idea that the world was bewilderingly complicated and way beyond our control. In China, Gu Kailai was put on trial for poisoning Neil Haywood. She had confessed, the court said, and she was given a suspended death sentence. Then her husband, Bo Xilai, was put on trial in the city of Jinan. He denied all the charges of corruption. But outside the court, something unexpected began to happen.
As you can see, Jinan's never seen anything like it. There are huge crowds here watching the media, watching the trial, and everybody who has any sort of grievance, any sort of complaint against the local government or the national government is here to try and get it aired.
She doesn't trust the trial environment here.
To make their case, they've been thrusting pieces of paper into my hands.
What happened outside the court in Jinan gave a glimpse of the widespread anger and frustration in China with the ruling system and its corruption.
Sorry to pause this, but watching that bit of footage of that journalist there reminded me this is a very, very specific little bugbear. But let's see if you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Just faintly in that guy's voice, there's a hint of self-awareness where he knows that he's a journalist covering something important, and therefore he's quite excited about it. And that comes through sometimes, even when journalists are in like kind of war zones or watching kids get blown up or whatever. Where you can just tell somewhere in their mind they're thinking, I could win the Pulitzer Prize out of this, or something like that. And it's a little bugbear of mine because it just ever so slightly breaks that fourth wall. Because all you can think about is the guy's career or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It came through quite strongly in that guy in that clip just now. So
that's one of the problems I have with seeing Christopher Hitchens on any live appearance. As much as I'm an admirer of his prose work and have kind of him, decently admiring of him in general, he always had that air of, I think I'm such a fucking brilliant person, I'm absolutely acing this, it's that air of, God, I love being a journalist. It's just it's something. You're right. It's something quite grating about it.
Too much self-aware. It's like when a kid is no longer cute because they become aware of themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like journalists being aware of themselves. Anyway, what's going on? Another one that always springs to mind is was it Raggy Omar during the Iraq War? When the Saddam is toppling, and he's just beaming with kind of like, this is of world importance, and I'm the guy on the BBC.
I'm the guy.
It's like that clip you had on Office Hours of Sheila Fogarty and Emily Maitlis as well, though. At the feminine level, it's that sort of wild indulgence in the love of the gossip. They're sort of really getting into it. Do you know what I mean? It's this sort of Westminster soap opera is so it's such an aphrodisiac for them in a way, strangely, or what I mean.
Can you imagine being someone like that, where you're smart enough to know that all your opinions are bog standard? There are thousands of other people in the media bubble with the same opinions, same takes, same style of talking, but they chose you. You're the one that gets to be the name in the face on the camera. For some reason, it must be quite strange. I mean, to be fair, someone who I don't think actually had this, to his credit, was Alan Wicker. I was watching
that is true. Alan Wicker
Wicker's World, and it's funny because he clearly is intelligent enough to realize his shtick, right? He knows he's doing the Alan Wicker thing of standing in a strange place and talking like this, But it never veers into self-parody. I mean, he will stand in some desolate desert in Nigeria and somehow manage to just be completely straight about what he's doing, even though it's the 100th episode of
And
Wikisworld.
it doesn't exude that sense of kind of excess enthusiasm that, I mean, I find this with military commentators as well. The sort of people who were sort of in World War II and would appear on the telly in the 60s and 70s had a certain sobriety. I mean, you've talked about this, you know, they dealt with issues of violence as grim duty, and they didn't sort of exceed a kind of arousal, you know, for it. Whereas a lot of the military guys now, a lot of them are sort of guys who just came in at the end of the Cold War, didn't get to fight a war, and they push this kind of, they have this kind of tension in their sort of presentation on the media, because they're always saying things like, well, of course, you know, nobody wants to kill people, you know, but then they'll use the argument of, but we've all trained for this for years, you know. So it's like, really, we do want to go in and kill people because it's fun. And a lot of military guys are like that. And I'm not gainsaying it. You know, the experience of war can be hyper exciting. But they know they have to confect a kind of reluctance to do it when they're in public. And you can see the sort of tension in them as the Tobias Ellwoods and the Richard Kemps of the world are telling you how terribly dangerous Putin is, but we must maintain, you know, a calm and civilized approach at all costs, when really they want to be in there in the shit.
Forces simmering under the surface of the society. The party leaders were split on how to deal both with what Bourgeois had done and the forces of anger that had now unleashed. When Jiabao, who was the premier, said that the problem was that the party had never confronted what had happened during Mao's time. Unless you have political reform and open up the society for democratic debate, Wen said, those ghosts will always threaten. But others disagreed. Above all, the man who had just been appointed the next party secretary, Xi Jinping. His family, like Boer's, had been at the very centre of the frightening forces that Mao Zedong had unleashed. One journalist wrote, "They want to keep that great black box that conceals the struggles and the brutality upon which China has built its staggering economic transformation firmly closed." And to keep it closed, Xi Jinping decided to turn China into a giant system in which everyone's behaviour could be predicted, managed, and controlled. The aim was to learn from the data how all the individuals linked together in the society, so their behaviour could be predicted, like components in a system.
我们可以追溯到说，出现每一张脸都可以对应说他的身份证，以及他所经过，比如在过去。
Somewhere, Tony Blair is jacking himself silly watching this.
This is a clip.
Tony's dream.
Go on, Simon. There's a clip from a BBC report. The reporter, and it is the same one that we saw there, John Sudworth. I'll put a link up to it after the show. It's called China's All-Seeing State. But there are a number of documentaries about the Chinese social surveillance system. There's a documentary called Total Trust, which is out there on the BBC's iPlayer on the Storyville strand, but it's also on other sites like Netflix. The one interesting thing that struck me about, do you know what the system is called that they use in China for the surveillance? Do you know what its name is?
No.
Tianwang, which is literally Skynet.
Wow. And is that directly inspired by Terminator 2?
I haven't been able to determine that, but it's the one thing that stands out. It's called the Skynet project. I mean, it's actually now going to what they call Skynet 2, where they're planning to actually get this install surveillance technology on the moon. They want a research station up there, and they're looking at, they've got it sort of nailed down in the cities. They want to extend it to rural areas so that everybody is covered over the whole of China. And of course, well, I mean, if they're up there on the moon and they have, satellite technology as well, it won't just be China they're looking at, will it? I mean, they'll be looking at absolutely everything.
Has it actually reduced the crime rate?
Well, this is part of the problem, because Curtis is going to give a sort of fairly alarming read on all of this stuff. And when you look at it more broadly in the round, there might be elements where you say, well, there's good things that they're doing. They're taking action on prohibiting algorithms manipulating search results, to restrict competition or monopolistic behavior. Things like, that's creeping in the West, awareness of things like, differential pricing. People have talked about, if you go on Amazon and try to pick a product, you might be getting a different price from someone else. And they've banned that in China, price discrimination, and protections for minors, trying to prevent social media addiction, the stuff that in a sense we are starting to do now, ensuring easier access for the elderly, So the thing is, Curtis is obviously showing a side to us, which is going to appear alarming. He is going to actually round this out a bit as it goes on and say, well, look, that's just another way of managing the system. The trade-off is that you give up your radical individualism, but you'll have such a smooth experience. Will you be living in Trumpton? You may be living in, the Chinese equivalent of Trumpton, but there will be a trade-off. You won't think in the same way about your ideas like individual freedom. But from the reports I've read, people online, there was a guy who did a sort of day in the life in Shanghai article, and he talked about, the completely smooth process of getting from home to work and doing the shopping and all the things in between, things which in England can seem incredibly aggravated and tiresome because of our infrastructure. In China, it's just a smooth, breezy experience. And you think, wow, why? I mean, I've had friends who've gone to China and said, yeah, it's like the best bits of America to the factor of 100. It's incredibly efficient and smooth.
Well, that's what that commie dude has said. You remember he went to China and then I had him on and everybody hated him. And he was telling me that he was trying to explain it. He was saying, like, it's hard to put into words, but everything just flows.
Everything just works.
Everything just works. Everything flows, as a kind of really one big vast meme system, I guess, so.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing things like, protecting workers in the sort of gig economy type professions, jobs as well. So there's actually beneficent elements. But again, bear in mind, we are going to react to this. We're going to bridle to this. But, anyway.
I have to say, though, going shopping now is an absolute ball ache. I hate going shopping.
Doing anything.
In Sainsbury's or Tesco's. It's just everything's such a pain. Because you have to do so much of it yourself.
Yeah. Just getting around. I mean, I find things just getting around, like you say, to do the shopping or to do some menial task that you want to do, or you have to do in person, and it can chunk, 2.5, 3 hours out of your day.
Yeah. And there's me and Simon making old man noises the whole way.
Yeah.
Wait, when you go shopping, you don't have to serve yourself. Like, there's still normal tills as well.
Yeah, but often they've got queues on them. So,
unfortunately, it's just quicker.
Or sometimes you only want to buy like four or five things, it's just a pain,
Doing it yourself is quicker because you don't have to queue anyway.
Yeah. And you're allocating your free labor to the supermarket as well.
Although I have been when I went last week, took the little one with me. She's now of the age where she can be a little assistant, and she still gets excited putting the stuff on the little conveyor belt and then putting it in the trolley on the other end. So I'm enjoying that. I'm kind of using her as a kind of shopping sous chef,
sweatshop labor.
I have noticed in certain supermarkets there is a bit of a hack where if there's like, if you really can't be asked someone, you can walk up to a member of the staff and go, "Oh, sorry, I really, do you have any?" and then pretend like you can't find it, and they'll probably just walk and get it for you. That's a bit of a, it's not, it's not, doesn't shave off hours or anything, but it can be helpful.
Panama's labor saving hacks. Yeah, it's good.
You did the old Mark from Peep Show trick, which is going shopping at Friday at 7 p.m. when nobody's there. You can do that. It's
and when there's like a rotisserie chicken for 8p, or they used to be.
You usually end up going there at peak times, though, which like Sunday afternoon or whatever.
What there's all this buzz at the minute about we live in a shoplifting epidemic.
Yeah.
Do you think that we'll get to the point where we just go back to the old-fashioned everything's behind the counter. You walk in with a list, and the grocer sort of just puts it all in a basket.
I read that Greggs this week have taken out their display items, so everything's going to be behind the counter now.
Really?
Because of the shoplifting in London, yeah. The forward display units that they usually have that you can just take stuff out of.
But the thing is, I remember maybe it's just the one that was near to me when I was a kid, but that's how it used to be. It used to be more like a proper baker's where there was just a counter with all the stuff they'd made behind it, and you'd have to go and ask. This thing of having everything outside in front of it is like a modern Metro Greggs, Pret a Manger style thing. That was not how it used to be. So in a way, return to tradition.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more than happy to do that. And if I was running a shop, that's the way I'd want to do it. I wouldn't just leave stuff out for people to take, because people will.
People will, yeah, exactly. And I mean, yes, obviously a lot of the quote-unquote shoplifting is done by, shall we say, new arrivals. But as Simon alluded to, people do that more than perhaps they would like to admit, I think, when it comes to that. There's probably a reason that for most of history, goods were not simply out in that way.
I mean, and you've got Waitrose complaining now about middle class shoplifting because of self checkouts. Do you remember? We all remember the great cheese thief Anthony Worrell Thompson.
Oh yes.
I'm pretty sure I saw him the other day, but it was certainly some dwarven faced man. I thought
nicking
near the cheese, your Waitrose.
It was mushrooms that he stole, or something. Some like really low ticket item, and it was.
I think it was meant to be some sort of cheese or something like that. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm of the age now where I'd happily pay like a Peruvian child to go and do it for me, like some Peruvian man.
That is actually something you can do. You can. I don't know what it's called. I've never used it, but there is a service where you just pay someone to shop for you.
It was quite prevalent during COVID, wasn't it? Start coming and doing where you get your shopping delivered. It comes with drawbacks though, because they don't always pick the best item, or just little things like 2 chicken breasts, and they've chosen like the 2 small, kind of little retarded ones on the side rather than decent ones, or bruised apples or whatever. Anyway, let's carry on.
周我们回溯它的行经路程，我们也做了像人和车的匹配。那同时在人上匹配还包括亲属关系匹配，然后是你经常接触人员之间匹配。就是当摄像机布到或者我们传感器布到一定密度的时候，其实我们会经常知道你跟谁经常在一起。
But there was a further aim to adjust the behavior of people so they would fit better into the system. It was called algorithmic.
Oh, here we go. Don't get your meat. Get your meat from a proper farmer's. I get my beef delivered all the way from actual bloody Japan, and it's Wagyu. Oh, fucking hell! Every time you mention anything online, everybody then starts this purity spiral. Listen, you have to eat 7 days a week, right? You're not going to get every single meal from the bloody artisanal market. Sometimes you just have to go to Tesco's and Sainsbury's. Stop being so pretentious. It really drives me up the wall. But anyway, let's carry on.
Your anger, Chad's agenda.
You've either got to go to the farmer's market, but it needs to be on like a bicycle or something, because cars are quite globalist, aren't they? Or you could get delivered by like a pelican, but with a basket hanging from its bill or something.
You don't want to buy that supermarket cheese. I get my cheese, aged in a cave and hand bloody carved by a monk. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's brought here by like a wooden.
Drives me bonkers. Shut up.
Has to be delivered by a wooden cart.
Why is everybody on the internet like this? It's always driven me up the wall. Just be normal, for God's sake.
And if the data from all the different sources showed a person behaving well,
you get your yogurt in a carton. I bloody curate mine myself. I've got an actual yogurt farm in my bedroom. Shut up.
Yeah, I'll send you my like sour yogurt starter kit so you can start off your own yogurt for eternity.
Wow. You mean you don't have a sausage cave? That's the type of thing people say. Well, no, but AA's right. It's like there is this whole subset of like right-wing health, lifestyle bros and the problem is, there are some things where it's sort of like, okay, they a lot of stuff does have oils in it that you probably shouldn't be eating, but then it'll get to the point of like, wow, of course, that tomato there has got something called MH2715. It's a compound that turns you into a woman. You need to stop eating that.
Yeah.
You know, sort of, and it's just shut up. Just shut up.
I can't believe you're buying that. Milk's got Bovyar in it. Oh, I have to get this special, this special milk, directly fed into my mouth, straight from the cow's udder. Fucking hell.
It's not always that easy. It's not always that easy to find. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got a farm. Yeah, there is. You can go and get fresh milk. But when I looked for friends around the country to try and find places where you could get fresh milk, it's quite difficult, There are not a lot of places, especially up in the north, where you can just go to the local farm and get milk.
See, my suspicion is that these people are lying. That maybe once in a while they'll do it, but they also, just like normal people, go to the supermarket once in a while. You know what I mean? Just drives me up the wall. Anyway.
Yep, that's raw. Yes, I'll go
Find
back.
the right
It is
food
raw
for their
milk.
children, not cheating at computer games, and not jaywalking, then they would be given what were called social credits. This would then give them rewards, from discounts on bills to getting better visibility on dating sites, even avoiding the queue to pay to see a doctor. "50 years before, an American psychologist called B.F. Skinner had become notorious when he had outlined just such a society. Skinner had shown how he could easily alter the behaviour of animals, like pigeons, by using a simple system of rewards.
The Bovyar milk, by the way, is something that Mrs. AA's got into trying to avoid. And she ended up the other day, and she was trying to avoid this Bovyar thing, ended up getting the milk in a bloody plastic bag or whatever, like a plastic, like you can imagine, like a bag full of milk. And obviously it went off. Obviously nobody drank it. Buy a bloody bottle of milk, woman, for God's sake.
Why is it better to have it in a bag? Why is that?
I don't understand. I just don't know.
I just take glass bottles.
You didn't make up Bovyar. I thought Bovyar was a word you made up a moment ago. It's
an additive.
I didn't know that was real.
No, it's a real thing.
It's an additive that people be getting.
The one I end up buying now is called. It's unpasteurized and comes in a glass bottle. But we do get through. I mean, somehow we end, even though there's only 3 of us, we get through bottles and bottles and bottles of milk. Because AAA has cereal at least once a day, twice a day, glasses of milk, cups of tea, coffee, so on. You end up getting through good like 4 or 5 of those bottles a week between the 3 of us.
Because it is very farm fresh milk is really good. Actually, you do really like drinking it. I mean, as I say though, I'm quite lucky, but when I go to the farm shop as well, I mean, I can't afford to pay 18 quid for a piece of steak the size of a credit card. So, there are limitations, I'm afraid. But, the milk is luckily affordable.
He called it operant conditioning.
In this experiment, he must peck at the cross 10 times before the food is forthcoming. After 4 or 5 sessions, the pigeon learns the routine perfectly and pecks at the cross wherever he sees it without being in the least upset at being made to work for his living.
Now that produces in a rat or a pigeon or a monkey and in a man a very...
Do you remember in Nuts in May, Simon, where they try to buy some milk there and use like health and safety standards wouldn't allow him to sell him the milk? Keith is very upset about that. Do you remember?
Yeah. Some farms used to do it here under the counter, so to speak, and now some farms will say, well, we can give you the milk, but technically we have to heat it to, 3.5 degrees for 10 minutes. Otherwise, we are breaking the law. So we have to, do it that way. I mean, some places you may still be able to get raw milk, but yeah, it's they may just have to do a nominal bit of heating to let it go through.
Since we're already paused, I just thought I'd say this is lovely sort of classic Curto material here, right? Like black and white, talking about what can be done with the mind and behaviour and stuff. B.F. Skinner is a classic Curto figure, surely.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's mentioned it before.
I feel like this is about the 10th time he's brought up B.F. Skinner in overall series so far?
No, rarely actually. He hasn't. This is the first time.
Really?
He did make visual allusions to pigeons in some of the earlier episodes, which is what he was heading towards. He has a blog entry about this. He talks about. I mean, this is the basis of the nudge unit, the behavioral insights unit that David Cameron brought in, and he contrasted it with Skinner. He said basically Tony Blair believed in a consumerist idea of democracy. He used focus groups to try and find out what people wanted as a way of shaping policy, except, of course, the war in Iraq. Like Mrs. Thatcher, he believed people knew best. They expressed their desires and wants clearly through the market, and politics, he believed, should imitate this. The behavioral insights team believed the opposite, that in many cases you can't trust the people, that if you let them just follow their desires, they will often do things that are bad for both themselves and for society. This doesn't mean you get rid of the market. Instead, governments should find ways to manipulate ordinary people's feelings and desires so that they, quotes, choose to do the right thing. And this was the basis of the book Nudge by Richard Taylor and Cass Sunstein, which a lot of that thinking comes from. And that's a lot of the sort of modern form of coercion that we live with now, which is based on behaviorism, which was B.F. Skinner's kind of utopian idea of you could get people to use the rational economic incentives, in a sense, to improve themselves in the way that was thought best by their betters. And he acknowledged the question is, well, who are their betters to dictate this? And what
I seem to remember from Jonathan Haidt that behaviorism has been discredited.
That's right.
Because this is something that he mentions time and time again in The Righteous Mind. He's always having a go at behaviorism as being a discredited, an outdated way of it's been scientifically disproven or something. Is that true?
It's very much the case, yeah. And what happens is you can see, really, if you think back to Century of the Self, Curtis says there's one powerful strain of psychology, Freud, which Bernays exploits. So basically you sell people through their desires. So they make free choices and you pander to those desires. Behaviorism is much more that you kind of plan a line to the outcome that you want to see, and you can sort of observe it and test it in a very empirical way. And then, you lead people towards that through these varieties of manipulation. And to me, it's sort of, it makes Freud look a little more favorable, because at least the idea is Freud is sort of operating from his beliefs about the actual nature of human motivations psychologically at some level. But this is a much more paternalistic view of managing the human, and in a way that's based on observational data, the actual behaviors and outcomes, rather than what you, let's say, project to be inside people in the way that Freud is kind of like imagining, or he's theorizing as to what drives people. This is actually based much more on what their behaviors are. And so from their behaviors, you kind of reverse engineer the stimuli that you need to push them in that direction, or to get themselves indeed to go in that direction. I mean, one of B.F. Skinner's critics was a guy called Lewis Mumford. And he said, well, I think of this as basically a vision of hell. The problem is it's a vision of hell that when you're there, you believe you've chosen to go there.
You would imagine that is more effective than, outright authoritarian sort of top-down, state-driven means.
The illusion, an illusion of choice. Yeah.
And Cass Sunstein co-wrote the book Nudge, right? And wasn't he? I assume that was a laudatory book about nudge approach, because Cass Sunstein was part of Obama's administration as well, right?
Right. Okay. I didn't look that deep into them, but no.
He did a paper. I think he also had some position, more than just advisory. Maybe at least, I don't know. He was an advisor maybe to Obama himself, but I can't remember what it was. Something in Obama's administration, but he wrote a paper that was definitely taken up by the state in Obama's time, and it was about. I think it basically said. I think this is on his Wikipedia page. Even it said, he advocates like basically anyone who could be any sort of threat to the existing oligarchy, like obviously surveil everything they do, but moreover get into their groups and try to nudge them, in ways that will make them fail, like influence in ways that will make them useless. And boy, do we see that all over the place now. You know, like as in like spooks, glowies. You know, like agents of any. You know, it doesn't have to be paid; it could just be voluntary, like anti-fascist types or whatever. But just get involved in groups that. But this meant anything from the far right. Obviously, that's his first target, right? But libertarians were another one who are often identified with the far right in some ways. But also it's Islamic extremists and anything. And I believe that method has been taken up wholesale by like almost every department of the American state, the British state, German, French, Australian, everything.
Yeah. And my suspicion is it appeals to bureaucracies because in a way it's more scalable. The sort of ideas of Freud, and deep psychoanalysis and human motivation, it's almost like, those are things which are going to be the domain of people with very specialist, privatized, almost intuitive forms of knowledge. They're not necessarily things which you can actually say, well, here's a plan that we can map this out as a program of actions and incentives that we can put in place. We have to kind of rely on these strange, charlatan psychiatrists telling us things about people, whereas this is much more a kind of cost accountancy method that you can roll out by just having matrices of compliance to certain, outcomes, which you then initiate by whatever policy taskings, or incentives you give people. So it seems to be much more a kind of a suited method to bureaucratic or managerial forms of control.
Very high rate of activity. And if you build up, you can get enormous amounts of behavior out of these organisms for very little pay. You don't need to give them very much to induce a lot of that. Now, a world in which a great many productive things occur on this schedule will be a wonderful world.
Skinner wrote a novel called Walden 2 that described a future utopia where all human behavior would be controlled through this kind of operant conditioning. It was a utopia, he said, because it would free society from all the dangerous and irrational impulses inside individuals' minds. All of that could be sealed off by managing people's behavior with rewards and treats. Now, China had found a way of creating just such a system of managing people through the mass of data it was gathering. It was being used to create a whole society where what went on inside people's heads was completely irrelevant. Their rational thought and their feelings were all bypassed. It was only their observed behavior that counted. And this allowed those in charge to bury and hide the anger and frustration that had been created in a society that was riddled with corruption and growing inequalities. And if people didn't respond...
I'm pausing, guys. Why am I pausing? I didn't want to break the all-time record of an uninterrupted... I thought it'd be ill-fitting to to let it go that long. Although I'm pretty sure some of the early episodes I let it go for longer. But
I was wanting to pause there, though, actually.
Go on.
I think just because... the point he's making here about China is, the Chinese completely flatten the idea that your internal preferences or your deep libidinal drives actually matter. All that matters is the outcomes which they postulate, and then you, as a normal, rational person, will adapt yourselves to the new reality where you won't get your X, whether it's your food, your money, or your ability to buy a train ticket, if you don't adapt yourselves to the behaviors that have been laid down. And they can map what you are going to want by their ability to gather and package data. But the problem is he's talking about he's saying that they're trying to bypass the kind of the human psychology. The point here is you can't do it. It doesn't actually work. There is a kind of price to be paid at some level. So those people in China will kind of know they're being steamrolled and pushed in certain directions. Now there's a point at which they can convince themselves it's in their interest and pursue that, and their Chinese have a deep cultural trope of harmony, let's say, and collective mutuality and existence in a sort of serene and organized way, a spiritually kind of guided path of cooperation. But there's also going to be an awareness for people increasingly, as you see, that in some of these documentaries, like this one I mentioned, a Total Trust, where people are beginning to realize they are kind of trapped, and power is still there, and it's pandering to them. It's giving them a world in which they can operate, but it's taking something away from them as well. And they're sort of having second thoughts in the Chinese system. There's elements where, like in the Soviet Union, perhaps during the war, people would turn to religion. They'd sort of need something else. And you've had problems like this in China with Christianity, for example, sort of breaking out sporadically, or faith communities like the Uyghur Muslims, who are obviously under the cosh. There are these elements of human behavior that will come out and can't be organized and straightened and corrected for.
Question though, Simon.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that this is a Western cope?
That what I'm saying is a Western cope, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
The very
indeed.
fact that that documentary was made and you're telling me
yes,
and so on.
Exactly, yeah.
It's kind of like, well, we have to believe, or our people have to believe.
Yes.
Their people have to believe that our system is the best.
Yes.
And therefore we can't have it that the Chinese system's working.
I'm absolutely open to that. Yeah, and I think Curtis is at some level trying to make us aware of that. We are having this response. I'm having that response, and probably my confirmation bias is looking for the information that says, oh well, actually there is this deep vein of hidden unhappiness in China, which for the most part may well not be the lived reality. I mean, it suits Nick Land, so it must be fine. But yeah, entirely possible. But there's not the same conception of the free individual, certainly not the radical individual that we've been cultivated with. So I think, yeah, you kind of have to try and get into the mindset to sort of see the pros and cons a bit more, deeply than we have space to do, but which I agree is a completely valid way to.
An even darker thought might be, what if they're just more honest than us?
Yeah.
That we live in this system as well. It's just that our elites are less honest about it and try to sell us illusions like free market and democracy and all the other nonsense.
That would go a long way to explaining it, because the different civilizational ethos between the West and China, where I mean this was observed by de Gobineau, Carlyle, various later thinkers as well. AJP Taylor notably said this, which is that the Chinese always seek basically the most median form of government. They're not interested in ideological priors. They just want to kind of settle everything into a perfectly median, almost like in the literal sense of the word, mediocre form of civilizational structure. I think one of the most awful things about the West is not so much the system we have, as the lies we tell ourselves about that system.
Yes.
As you say, the illusion of market capitalism, the illusion of choice, the illusion of freedom. It would just be better if, I mean, what was the point you made the other week, AA, that it's quite sad that we don't actually have a Putin figure who is just the government. That even that which we do have approaching that is always shrouded in, I stand for this, I stand for that.
I made a video on Tuesday, because I'm a reasonably big political channel, and people are going to be like, well, we want your take on what's happening with Star Wars or whatever. But there's always part of me, and there's always some comments like this as well. It's just like, do we really have to go through the pretense that it fucking matters if it's Keir Starmer or some other douchebag? I mean, who gives a shit, really? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, like the notion that these people like David Lammy or Starmer or any other person there actually have real functional power or control or are doing anything but playing a little role there is kind of farcical, but we all have to play along with it all the time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of, in fact, we were talking about Brian Baletic earlier on, Horace, and you're probably right that he's a bit of a douche himself. But one of the things I respect about him is that he just gives absolutely no credence whatsoever to day-to-day Punch and Judy politics. He always just steps straight over it and be like, yeah, no, here's what's actually happening. and it's going to happen regardless of who the president is or who's in power. That this is the script, and I have always respected that about Beletic, which is why I've got time for him. But I always feel a little bit kind of grubby having to deal with the low politics, the day to day. You know what I mean? Because it's obvious bullshit. It's obvious not. It's the level of those two yakking hens that we were talking about earlier on, Simon. What were they? Emily Maitlis and
Sheila Fogarty.
It's just that level of crap, really. But anyway, let's carry on.
Retreats. They could be forcibly reprogrammed.
I noticed in the supermarket the other day, there was there's that rack selling the TV guides, like there's the Radio Times, the TV Times, the What's on TV, and I noticed the Mitchell brothers were back, and I took a picture of it. Right, it was a Grant Mitchell, and it was like Phil is back for the 800th time in EastEnders. The Mitchell brothers reunite, and I took a picture of it and I tweeted out. I was like, I could have taken this picture at any point in the past 25 years, and there's a portion of the public that are perfectly satiated by that. They just watch their EastEnders. My grandmother was a bit like this when she was alive. She'd watch her EastEnders, she'd watch her Strictly Come Dancing, whatever else. And that was it. I was like she didn't need anything else. Yeah. But in a way, following Westminster politics is just like a kind of like shit person's EastEnders in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's the same level.
Yeah, it sort of almost needs a category to think about things. I mean, there's, as we've talked about a lot, especially it's been talked about a lot on this channel, a lot of people are happy to be led, to have a lot of decision making taken away so that they can get on with their lives, and that's absolutely fine for them at a livable level.
I think the kind of grim truth at the heart of all this very high-flying behavioral psychology and Bernays, talking about Freud and all this kind of thing, the heart of the matter is that most people just accept what they're given. I was watching a documentary the other day about some guys who work in a Congolese copper mine. And it's sort of like, well, if you put that against the example of the bird who realizes he has to tap the cross 12 times to get the food, well, it's okay. In order to get some money to live, we have to work in this copper mine. We'll just go and work in the copper mine. Most people aren't really going to be thinking beyond that. If this whole idea that people are constantly looking for something else is a very recent sort of bit of cope, I think, in Western media and Western ideas. It's just, as I say, most people just accept the status quo that they're in, even if it's absolutely horrible. They'll just, if that's how it is, that's how it is.
I have a vision of Panama lounging in imperial splendor, enjoying programs of people doing nasty, dangerous jobs in Africa.
I mean, there is
the footage.
It's some truth to that. It just gives
Panama's
gives
the Zoolander in the mine, the Zoolander meme in the mine.
He's kind of laughing like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear in the movie theater with his fat cigar in his mouth.
There is some truth to that. I won't deny it. I'm actually off to Africa in a couple of weeks, so I'll report back what I see.
Don't go native.
Well, I already half am. I mean, it wouldn't take that much
to come back and you're dressed like Shaka Zulu or something.
No, I always thought if I did, it would either be Idi Amin or one of those. I think he just had a good style, and one of those Nigerians in the huge, like, those robes, these huge ornate Nigerian robes.
Yeah.
Maybe other than that, I think I'll just stick with the good old white suit.
As it is alleged is happening in large re-education facilities in Xinjiang to hundreds of thousands of the Muslim Uyghur population. In the West, the corruption and the inequalities also continue to grow. The politics.
I've just thought of this. I'm not going to see Glengarry Glen Ross. I want to go and see the new Mortal Kombat movie. We should go and see that. And I want to see the new Street Fighter movie down the line. I was going to go on my own, like a Billy No Mates, but we could make a trip of it.
I'd do that. Yeah.
Want to watch more? Want to watch Mortal Kombat? I think Horace has left. I think Horace has fallen asleep.
No, no. Is it what? Is it? The only good thing about the original Mortal Kombat film was Christopher Lambert as Raiden. He was quite funny.
And the Shang Tsung was good. Your Soul Is Mine. But yeah, there's a brand new Mortal Kombat movie coming out in next month. And there's also a new Street Fighter coming out.
I see. I would treat it as an expedition in Xennial anthropology to understand better.
To understand.
Is it an all-female cast or what? Like,
no, they've done a pretty good job. They actually look like the characters. They actually look. There's only one little bug. There's one little bugbear about the Street Fighter movie, which is that there's no Sagat for some reason, or at least they haven't announced the Sagat. But other than that, it looks pretty much like a perfect recreation of Street Fighter, only in real life. And so does the Mortal Kombat one. So I don't really go to the cinema anymore. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go in my shades and my Phoenix Wright top. Why not? Anyway, let's carry on.
Seemed unable to do anything about it, but the technology systems were mutating, morphing into ever more extreme forms. And out of that was going to come a completely new kind of management and control in the modern world. Unlike in China, it wouldn't try and bury people's emotions and feelings. It would work by doing the very opposite, pushing and exaggerating those emotions to a pitch of continual hysteria and suspicion that would create a frozen world, paralyzed by the distrust of everyone and everything. By now, the social media corporations had realized that intense emotions were the key to increased profits. And what were called viral content factories were growing rapidly online. Their aim was to spread memes and other material that would create what they called high arousal emotions, or activating emotions, such as lust and nostalgia and envy, or best of all, outrage. Because these were feelings that got people to pay attention longer and react more intensely, which then translated into many more clicks and shares.
There's your Basil the Slop King.
Yeah. This is the thesis of communicative capitalism that I've referred to in previous episodes. And Curtis has talked about this a lot in interviews. He says that this phenomenon of things like Trump, forgetting what he politically may be aligned to, he doesn't really emphasize that. He talks about the problems of things like Trump and Brexit is that in that period, back in 2016, you had Twitter where, liberals would go on to, onto Twitter and say, look, Trump has done this. Isn't this terrible? In big capital letters. And they'd be outrage flooding that particular social media platform. But then nothing would happen. And this is what he said about Trump constantly, is that, well, it all seems like there's a lot of, he uses that word hysteria going on with Trump and his interventions, but then nothing really comes out of it. Nothing has really changed. And that's why he's this kind of figure of the age. It all seems like there's drama.
Everyone that's considered themselves quote unquote right wing for the past 10 years, even when they sort of moved away from this type of thing, has basically been living on the corpse of what they call populism, based on this mechanism, which is this whole idea that something can or will happen because because you do the right rain dance, you put the right tick in the right box, you support the right man. I mean, this reached a very sad apogee in the most recent American election, didn't it? Where all these people who, had been burned how many times and clearly deep down knew better, gave into, we just got to vote the right way again. This is it. This is something, and that's why now there's this sudden shift down into sort of political nihilism, because that's all it was just the illusion of populism, keeping everyone from this whole idea that we could actually influence political change in the Western world. It simply doesn't work like that.
Was Curtis here specifically talking about? Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I got to sneeze. It's gone. Sorry. Was Curtis here talking specifically about 2016. Or was he talking about social media in its like?
Yeah, I guess he's talking about this kind of late era of, of hyper stimulated, online communication, which all builds into a kind of, to use the phrase, a big nothing burger, and it leads people into these kind of distractive modes of politics. I mean, he talked a bit about. He was interviewed in The Guardian in 2021, and he said, he was shocked at talking to the Labour activists in 2019 because they were very dismissive of the Brexit voters. He said, I didn't vote for Brexit, but I did get why people did. He said, because it was a tactical way of declaring your alienation from a mainstream politics of technocratic management. And he said, you can't just dismiss the people who are voting Brexit. You have to take them seriously. And he said it's the same as in the US, where people dismiss Trump supporters as being duped by Putin, leaving them to wallow with crumbling infrastructure and a booming opioid epidemic. He says there were lots of people who couldn't face up to what was happening. People wouldn't tell the story of how Trump was really elected by Americans, not Russians, or that he was actually quite ineffective and he wasn't being blocked by deep state paedophile Satanists. He said, I think those conspiracy theories suited the New York Times because it bumped up their readership, and it suited the intelligence agencies as they were suddenly lionized as part of the resistance to Trump.
And it suited Trump because he wasn't, as you said, he wasn't being blocked by the deep state and the courts and stuff.
No.
Well, it really did. I mean, it sold to all of us that something really weird was happening, and he was against the deep state. That's what you kind of like. It was good kayfabe, if you put it that way, because it really did seem like he was against the system. Did it not? At least for a period there.
Yeah.
Well, that I could tell at the time, first time around, that was what was being sold to us by bullshitters like Steve Bannon. But yeah, I mean, it did seem to work on loads of people. That's obviously the substance of Q. That's how Q got read by anyone, despite being absurd. I was just going to ask, like, what Curtis said. I don't remember his exact wording, but he was saying that, was he saying that the social media companies themselves encouraged this outrage type content?
Yeah.
Or was he? Because okay,
angry people click more. Yeah.
Because if we're talking about YouTube, I mean, TikTok, I don't know, but YouTube started a good sort of 10 years before that. I think YouTube started in 2006 or 5. It was quickly bought by Google Corp, Alphabet, or whatever. But it was originally its own startup. And if he's saying that YouTube were actually, the original company were actually encouraging specific types of actually quite negative or, weird or disorientating content, I don't agree. I think that is what a lot of people choose to put on there. The Basils, the fucking...
Not from the off. Not from the off. It's analogous to when he's talking about Putin. He goes through these different kind of phases in the style of rule, and in a sense, Curtis has talked about this. With those things, they were still operating off the fumes of the early internet utopianism of the 90s about we would all be sort of networked individuals connected to each other, and a kind of sort of self-stabilizing structure of harmony would emerge from that. So it feels like you're still in the period of those old days of a kind of certain lingering idealism, which then gives way into another phase where the commercial containment and profitability of audience response and feedback then takes over, and it becomes a more sort of nakedly commercial kind of pursuit. So I think it's a different era.
I mean, I began to see the sort of internet controlling companies, especially Google and Facebook and stuff, and other, probably Oracle and all the sort of gatekeepers of what mainly consisted of people's activity online, right? And I began to see them as something more like just sort of the state. I mean, just sort of the same oligarchy as also includes the state, or the people who control the state. They obviously became obviously Google's slogan used to be "Don't be evil," and they got rid of that, and it was kind of symbolic. It was like they joined the people who they might have.
They become part of the superstructure in Marxist terms, yeah.
Right, and But I would say that happened around sort of 2014 to 16. Yeah, that was when that suddenly switched over. Before that, there was much left of what was, the original internet. Or at least we used it as though it was still like that. There was no overt sort of Google was like the all-seeing eye sort of Illuminati bastard. I don't know. They are the enemy now. They're like anyway.
Yeah.
All right, let's carry on.
Then in 2014, a group of psychologists working with Facebook announced that they had found a way to put hidden messages into people's news feeds that would then create specific moods and feelings without the individuals being aware of it. It was the moment when the psychologists' theories of priming or nudging fused with the power of the new technology, and it seemed to show that manipulation could work on an industrial scale. But when it was revealed, it also had another unintended effect. It began to sow a dark suspicion into people's minds, because they no longer knew whether what they were feeling or thinking was their own, or really coming from outside sources. But for the machines, that was no problem, because suspicion was also another perfect high arousal emotion that they could feed off. And suspicion was about to spread uncontrollably across the internet, because into this mix came two terrible shocks. The first was Brexit, the other was the election of Donald Trump. The shock of both these was enormous.
So he's returning to the thing he says at the start of hypernormalization. Do you guys remember? So do you agree with this, that these were shocks to what went before? Do you agree?
Oh,
with
absolutely,
that?
yeah, absolutely. It was a huge thing.
I always thought it was surprising, but to see them as shocks or as like sort of
it was
ain't supposed to happen is kind of a leftist or a centre.
Well, he's talking from the point of view, let's say, where he's situated in the BBC. He talks a lot about that there was a kind of liberal elite who were convinced they were in a kind of paternal relationship with the bulk of people, the working class. And then when these things happen, it was they who experienced the shock. They felt they'd been sort of benign, what's the word? Benign protectors of the masses. Of the masses. And then the masses had turned around and bitten them hard. And the shock kind of resonated because they then sort of failed to understand, and they retreated either into culture, which Curtis says really becomes a comfort blanket for them, or they retreat into a kind of mirroring dismissiveness, like AA said, becoming the kind of spiteful, malignant hordes that they accuse everybody else of being. So they end up in a kind of a trap of their own projection. So I think that's what he's really referring when he's situating, I guess, from the median BBC viewer, and their sense of who they are and where they are in the world, because this is, again, it's going out through that medium.
And I mean, one of the other things that happened, I remember clearly, it broke the mind, melted the minds of some people, like AC Grayling, and to a certain extent,
he's quite an intelligent man.
Didn't Richard Dawkins become a kind of dribbling moron for a while as well?
As the phrase is, they were broken by it, as people keep saying.
So that's one thing that happened, but I think people forget about the sheer number of conspiracy theories that the mainstream left have been want to entertain. Like in their view, Dominic Cummings was a dark Svengali figure who basically brainwashed the nation into
Putin.
It's voting for Brexit, and then Putin, and then there's all like Russiagate, or like so many different things. But that Blue Anon is a thing, so they really did become like left Alex Jones for a while.
That's what the kind of liberal media and just sort of general middle class British sort of types couldn't really understand about Brexit is that and I think to this day they still probably don't quite get what the impulse behind it was. Is that it didn't happen because of that bus with the thing about 350 million quid for the NHS on it. It didn't happen because Dominic Cummings ran some like sort of wacky Gen X media campaign. That was all basically irrelevant. It was because the elite, who these people are not part of, by these people I mean the kind of left liberal type. These aren't the elite. They don't literally run the country. But what they didn't get is that the elite put down a huge red button that said "Do not press" at a time when people were getting sick of the way things are going, and they were surprised when the country pressed that button. It's nothing to do with the EU, nothing to do with any of that. It was purely a psychological thing of, we're not happy with the way things are going. We don't really feel that this is really our quote unquote our country. All these lies about democracy and all this that you're giving us, we're going to press the button. That's simple as that.
And it's exactly the phrase Curtis described. He has a quote I've got here. They were given a big button which said "fuck off" on it, and they pressed it, and that was the idea. And
yeah.
I find that funny, and it's true, but I would just remind everyone. I think it's a little glib, because how did we get to where David Cameron announced a referendum in the first place? I know there was a long story before. For those of us who were already converted to the Leaver cause, like 10 years before the referendum, we watched all that unfold painstakingly, stage by stage. Well, I never thought we would get to any sort of referendum until he announced that. And even then, it was conditional on winning the election, which he thought wouldn't happen. But it's just, I would say that was a result of an already germinating, well, much more than germinating, populist force. And these people who you're describing, I agree, they were shocked by it, but they must have actually ignored that whole thing.
Well, they treat it like an election. They went with the standard political wisdom that said people will just vote for the status quo.
Yes, exactly.
Let's not forget, they wheeled out Obama, said, "Oh, you'll be at the back of the queue." Do you remember all of that sort of stuff? And everybody was like, "No, we didn't give a shit."
There was a lot of investment. I mean, David Graeber was the figure we talked about at the beginning of the series with his book Utopia of Rules, but there was this other book he did called Bullshit Jobs, which is quite interesting, which is about a lot of the sort of sectors in which people have jobs and get reasonably well paid for them, but they don't really have any sort of beneficent function. They're just part of the impression that the society has of itself as functioning and cogent and harmonious, but the actual jobs are meaningless. And in part of the book he talks about how there's a lot of people who do a lot of, if you like, what you call unpaid work in preserving the appearance of systems. I mean, he talks in one section of the book about there's a lot of coders. There's a lot of jobs, the bullshit jobs, which are about fixing badly written code. Yeah. But there's a lot of unpaid work that's done by genuine coders to actually write code in the first place that does work. People who actually have projects where they're seeking to bring out an application or to improve a network system in a company that they're not actually paid for. Their actual job is just to kind of fix things when they go wrong from the legacy systems they've inherited or that other people have constructed. So, and he says this is a sort of general kind of cultural thing, that a lot of people invest a lot of unpaid work and time into upholding systems that exist. This part of a kind of this sort of modern mentality, and it applies to politics just as much as well. That a lot of those kind of, like you said, they weren't the elite, Panama, but the liberal elites, if you like, who work in places like the BBC, they're not at the top table, but they put a lot of psychic energy, let's say, into buttressing the systems that they believe work, and which, David Cameron was probably relying on a sense of that, non-executive elite upholding.
The technical elite theory term is non-governing elite, which
non-governing elite. That's
quite a large swathe of the country.
And also, I just think that the average person saw the question, if you like, as just something completely different to what David Cameron could have seen it as, because him and his circle could only really, I think, see the EU as a political, technocratic trade. That's what they saw it as. The average person saw it, or the average person who was sympathetic to Leave at least, saw it as just, well, that's the thing, that's the reason why we have to have immigrants. It's the thing that means we have to have higher taxes. Blah 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 blah. There was such a disconnect. I think that's why the shock was so
bendy
great.
bananas hat.
Yeah, exactly. But there's the day I realized that,
by the way,
infamous
shows.
The way the day I realized that Leave was going to win was when about 2 years before the actual vote, I was with my grandmother and she was doing some shopping, and she saw that the light bulbs, which she had always bought for, and bear in mind she's in her 90s, she's been around a while. The light bulbs she'd always bought that were in watts had been changed to bulbs that were in what is it? The other measurement, and there was a little EU flag next on the box because it was an EU bylaw that had meant that you had to do them in new measurements. And she was so apoplectically angry. I thought, yeah, I see what's going to happen because that is where you get the decision. That is, if you're going to do a referendum, it will be on things like the bananas, that whole Peter Hitchens thing about the measurements of biscuits being in metric, not imperial. That is what will actually tip the scales to 52 as opposed to 49, say, for the pro-Leave vote. It wasn't anything to do with money for the NHS.
People also greatly forget about figures in the culture like Robert Kilroy Silk, and trying to remember, like, to Horace's point that it did predate the vote. There was Murdoch Media, Robert Kilroy Silk, Farage as a character himself,
Patrick Moore.
It was always it was always an undercurrent that we didn't want to be part of Europe. That has always been there, going right back to my days listening to talk Ian Collins and James Whale and Mike Dickin in the late 90s. There, they'd have that call in probably 2-3 times a month about being part of Europe.
Yeah,
Maastricht Treaty,
Maastricht rebels,
all of this sort of stuff. So
what's interesting as well is that a lot of the people who were most vociferously anti-Brexit when it came round had also been very anti the Maastricht Treaty the first time round, because basically for sort of liberal left anti-capitalist reasons they disliked it. And also, of course, going all the way back to when we actually joined what was then the EEC, that was a very bitter question. There was never a kind of whole consensus on whether we should be doing that. And I think a German professor I was speaking to a few months ago explained it quite well, which he said that you have to remember that the original EEC was made up of, it was the losers club. It was Germany, who had been defeated in 45, and France, who had been defeated in 1940. That there was a palpable sense of, there was this strong sense of countries that had basically come to terms with having lost something and were basically moving towards integration as a way to cope with that loss. The problem Britain has always had, kind of post World War II, and we still haven't really reckoned with it, is that at some point you just have to psychologically face up to reality of what you've lost. And I don't think we've ever, because I know we had Suez, but that's not really quite what I mean. We never had that blow to the face, it's over for you. We always clung on to this thing of, Britain's relevant. We've still got a bit of empire. Okay, we haven't got any empire anymore, but we're still powerful. We've still got an army. We still do, worldwide military, this, blah, blah, blah. And I think because of that, there was always going to be that anti-EU sentiment, because at the end of the day, it is basically a losers club. And we weren't, and the problem is that we have become losers, but aren't willing to accept it, basically.
It's always like the Germans had, they had like the Gewerkschaftswunder, early on. They got their economic reconstruction early on. It's almost like sort of Thatcher as an afterthought thought, we better kind of try and rouse that sense of rebuilding and prosperity, but it was too late by then.
Yes.
So just to tie back to what you said about this coming as a shock to certain people, because I asked about that because I find it hard to imagine, because as I said, I'd seen this from the exact opposite end of the tube, as it were. Watching, like, looking out for people who would try and get us out of the EU, or try and get in some sort of populist candidate like Trump, but in Britain, obviously. And so for it to come as a shock, shocks me, but Andy Grayling was a funny example because he was the most deranged, embarrassing person on Twitter in the years after the referendum. But
Yeah.
I knew him already as like quite an interesting philosopher. Like I'm sure he's left leaning, and I didn't necessarily agree with him on loads of stuff. But I saw him in a debate with Christopher Hitchens, and he out argued Christopher Hitchens, which takes some doing, on the question of like bombing of civilians in the Second World War. I mean, it helped that I already agreed with him. So, but yeah, like it's just an example of someone who kind of like a really intelligent person who lost their mind, like really couldn't handle it.
And it's like sunk cost fallacy. It's the moment of realization.
AA, when do you think it was? At what point in the aftermath of the vote that the kind of cabal around Leave.eu and this kind of thing were actually kind of co-opted and began to? Because in retrospect, it just looks like a pro-American faction taking over from a pro-Europe faction.
I think it was always. I think it was always there. I think it was always.
Do you think that was basically the reasoning behind the whole campaign?
How you getting people like the Mog and Boris and people like that? These are part of the system. There was a faction of American aligned interests that wanted this to happen, I would suggest. And in fact, it goes right back to the first few episodes of this series, The Reviewing Under Curtis, when I looked at An Ocean Apart. If you remember that series, when we looked at the disagreements between Thatcher and Heseltine in the mid-'80s there, with Thatcher being more pro-America and Heza being more pro-Europe. And genuinely, since what's happened with the Iran war and Trump and them threatening the Falklands now and all this sort of stuff, I still think it was a mistake. I still think that overall the pro-Europe forces are basically correct on the pure geopolitical front, and the idea it could be otherwise was always a kind of a post-empire hangover cope, as you were talking about. That's my genuine view. I think events have borne out that view, and if I can remember the exact moment that I decided finally that I would vote Remain, and it was a speech by David Cameron where he laid out the geopolitical situation and the memory of the Second World War, and I'm just anyway. Let's not relitigate the whole debate here.
Simon, ring the bell.
Let's go.
We're not covering Kurto. No, yeah, let's move on.
We're going to have to call it again. We're not going to get. I'm sorry, guys.
Should we give it 10 minutes?
We haven't got the time, mate. It's 10 past 5 here. It's 10
I tried, chat. I tried.
There are some super chat. I've just discovered, by the way, there's a pile of new Evola books coming out by Arctos, really? Including an 800-page biography of Evola called Evola: An Adventurous Life by Andrea Scarabelli, a book by Alexander Dugin called Julius Evola: Political Traditionalism, and a new collection by Evola himself called The Woman Problem, all coming soon. So there's 3 new
the Glenn Ross problem.
There's 3 new books for us to buy. Yeah.
Maybe I can do a few months of like nothing but reviews of Evola books and then monetize my channel that way.
It was the actress you were looking at earlier, the girl boss actress. She could be on the cover of that, The Woman Problem.
The Woman Problem with that, yeah. I mean, it's actually got this as a cover. I'll show you the cover here. Just called The Woman Problem. There you go. It's just a standard kind of Arctos.
Now, is this one of those? I'm guessing this is one of those ones they do where it's a collection of essays on.
Almost certainly.
As opposed to, because I have to say that's a suspiciously slop.
There's absolutely no way Evola wrote a book.
No, he wouldn't have given it that. I have to say I'm a little bit suspicious about this because I was pleased to hear that the Evola biography was coming out, and a few weeks ago I saw them promoting it and they used like an AI slop thing, and I just thought this doesn't bode well, does it? Like, why are they using?
It looks like a pretty serious work of scholarship, to be honest. But
I hope so. But that did rather put me up the wrong way. I thought, is Arctos trying to kind of cash in on slop right type stuff? You know.
Oh, look, I may have played a role. I've just Googled the woman problem. Let me show you this. Evola, the woman problem. Look, this is a book that was brought out in Italian. The Woman Problem: Essays on Femininity, 1921.
Oh, he did actually. That is actually
posthumous collection. They did a ton of these in Rome in the early 80s after he died. And there's me. Look, why aren't these translated? October 2025. What are the odds some dude from Arctos was following me, or possibly even Dugan himself saw that, and they were like, right, let's bring him out. So
to be fair, I am nitpicking here, but I think they should have gone for the problem of woman, because I think that's probably more true to what Evola actually argues in those essays, which is kind of about the nature of femininity, as opposed to just, aren't women fucking annoying, type stuff. But that's just, that's literary.
They'll probably sell more copies calling it the woman problem. Though, let's be honest.
They will, but they'll be selling it to the wrong people, and that
wasted. Absolute pills before swine.
It'll be,
isn't that right?
Yeah, there'll be a bunch of annoying Zoomers reading it, and sort of farm dwelling millennials.
Yeah.
You could rename him. Could rename him to Julius Ovula.
All right, let's hit these super chats and get out of here. Gaggle Hawk says, "Praise the God Emperor for giving us strength." C123 says, "I do hope the excellent apolitical content turn makes its way onto YouTube also. For far too long, we have been forced to subsist on the thin gruel of politics." C123, AA Gaming, get over there. It's not. It was what was released today, 1984. Tomorrow will be 85. If you've missed 83 and the years before I was born, go back. What was the best game before I was born? People, right? That's before 1983. I was born in 82. From 82 backwards, what's the best game? What do you think they picked?
Wasn't it Pac-Man?
Yeah, well, Pac-Man was an honorable mention or a runner-up. It wasn't Pac-Man. Think.
Donkey Kong?
Correct. Amon. It was Donkey Kong.
I remember someone who had one at the little brown Nintendo thing at school.
So get and watch that. Everybody like and subscribe and comment. Even if you don't like video games, comment on it to make sure there's another outlet for my creative energies. And I need to get at least the value of that bloody red top I bought back. Need to make at least, I don't know how much that cost me, but I want to recoup the value at that. That's my ROI for that series. It needs to be at least like 50 quid or something. Chris Primer says, insert video of wide Putin walking down the hallway. Also, who in Russia funds Steven Seagal? User Earn says, Hat, how do I best donate to you given your Ko-Fi is no longer working?
Is it not working? It should be. There isn't actually any other way to do it. I don't have any other donation links. I mean, thank you very much, by the way. What's the chap's name?
User Earn F4Y.
User Earn. Okay, well, User Earn. If you leave a comment on like a most recent video or something, I'll see it and I'll DM you. I'll reply with a link to the Ko-Fi once I fixed it. I didn't realize it wasn't working.
Chris Primer says, because people like me want to see that in real life. Puppy Sect says, the self-checkout in my local supermarket had to be shut down due to misbehaving youths. Youths in inverted commas. And no, I'm not Grim from Red Hood says, Nostalgia Agent. He plays it so that you don't have to. No, you should play some of those old games. Some of those old games are really good. A good one to try that hasn't actually been mentioned yet is Hidden Agenda. Almost everybody who is the sort of person who watches this channel will love the game Hidden Agenda from 1988. It's an MS-DOS menu-driven game where you play a South American dictator who has to manage the different political factions, select the cabinet, and stop himself being couped or assassinated. and pretty much one for one is the inspiration for Tropico, but in my opinion is a better and deeper political simulator than Tropico, and is probably the best political simulator of all time. Hidden Agenda, ladies and gentlemen, you can have that one for free, and you can get it for free because it's been abandonware for many years. All right, okay, 3 hours on the dot. Simon, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Simon__Roberts, and I'd like to shill briefly a new video from my friend Hector Drummond on his channel on YouTube. Go and look it up. He's looking at Matt Goodwin's criticisms of Restore.
Oh, I saw that, and I was going to watch it in the car on the way home. So thanks for reminding me. Thanks for reminding me.
That. Good.
Hat, where can people find you, sir?
You can find me at my YouTube channel or on Twitter at I forgot what it is. lowlife_hat. That's it.
Horace.
At Infinite Horus. Excuse me. At Infinite Horus on Twitter.
Excellent. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now I have to go and bash my way through traffic on the A3 to get back home. A3, M25, M3. Every single day, caught up in that drive time. Think I'd plan it differently, wouldn't you? Given that just when you've got kids, you end up forced back into 9-to-5 world. There's no escape from it. We live in China already, damn it. Go and watch AA Gaming, everybody.
Next time we finish next time. Promise.
And next time we will definitely get to the end. It's only been how many parts? 17
minutes, says Orksy in the chat.
Fantastic. All right, we'll definitely finish next time. We'll finish next time. Yeah, I'm not going to promise, but I think we will.
We'll try.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Well, that's easily fixed.